everybody? It's your boy Ron. And welcome to I'm at you right now, I got my hat on, so y'all let me be. So welcome to another Tuesday night with your boy on the Melanated Council. No, this way. Typically we go live every other Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern time, 6 p.m. Pacific time, and then wherever else you're at in the world, make sure you can follow us and watch us. Per usual, make sure you like, subscribe, enjoy the show. Make sure you hit that notification bell if you are on YouTube. Make sure if you're on Twitch, you hit the notification bell or the like or the follow. And we are going to be underway. So, man, a lot of things have been going on. I know we're kind of like on our normal-ish kind of streaming cycle, if that makes sense, especially to those folks that are on Twitch and YouTube. We're kind of getting back into the swing of things. I know the weekend kind of messed with us with a little bit, but we're here blasting all the links and whatnot, and I think this is there we go. So yeah, welcome in. Like I said, this is your boy Ron here, live for effect. It's cold in Michigan. Hold on. I don't know where everybody else is, but I know right now in Michigan, it is cold. Cold. Today, pretty much the majority of the school districts within my area, they closed. And then they're also closing tomorrow as well. So now we've had 2 days full of snow days. Now, per rules and regulations and all that other good stuff, if we have another snow day, basically what that means is on what would have been our last day of school, we will have to make that. So it's kind of one of those things where, like, man, do I want it to happen? Not really, but also at the same time, I know it will happen. It's just a matter of time. But that's that. So 2 days of snow days. We're cool with it. I do know I do get paid. However, if we do have another snow day, excuse me, I end up burning my PTO because I got a bunch saved up. I got a bunch of PTO saved up, so I might as well probably put that into good use. I know I got some vacation time, but I'll probably save that for the end of the school year. Just to make sure I still get a paycheck and whatnot. But into what? Enough about me and my little shenanigans. Matter of fact, I done got myself some shenanigans. But then again, these are good shenanigans, okay? I got myself into some good shenanigans, so I am happy for that. I am happy. I can't wait. I'm excited, especially for like spring/summertime. I am super excited. I can't spoil a whole lot, but stay tuned for further details at 11. Anyways, so again, welcome. And even then, per usual, before we actually get into that, excuse me, before we get into the episode for tonight, let me drink some of this because I got the hiccups and they're not letting me go. Okay, per usual, before we start the stream, I'd like to do a little mental health check-in. If I get tight. Boom. So here you go. If If you're on YouTube, here's the question. You can type your comments in, we'll blow it up, respond. If you're on Twitch, we're gonna have you answer that same question. So if you're on both of those places, social medias, again, Twitch, YouTube, that is the question for tonight. Just to kind of do a little round robin. All right. All right. So while you guys are coming in, getting settled with your beverages and choices, with your snacks, food, dinner, lunch, breakfast, whatever the case may be, as you all get settled in, I'm going to bring to the stage my other, I'm not even gonna call them co-host, my other host for the evening. Unfortunately, we're going to be down one. I know, teardrops, teardrops. So, um, without further, well, not necessarily without further ado, um, coming to the virtual roundtable next is a very good dear friend of mine. This young man, I should say, has been known to defy the stomach challenge as far as I've known this young man. You put some 2-year-old meat, steak, potatoes, almond milk, wine, beer, alcohol, whatever you think could possibly make this young man's stomach become a life-size roller coaster, you put it in front of this young man and he will eat it and nothing will happen. He's gonna sit there like, eh, what's supposed to happen? Because I don't feel nothing. Also, this young man has been known to be the smooth talker out the trio. And here's what I mean. This man will take your girl, have her to come home, cook dinner, cook breakfast, and lunch, and dessert, only to be a gentleman, to bring her back home and actually knock on the door, greet the boyfriend, spouse, fiance, whoever, like, hey, yo, listen, your girl, she can cook phenomenal. I done had a 4-course meal, and mind you, we didn't even do the do tonight to as a nightcap. I'm gonna leave that to you and your department. However, if you fail in that department, I'm gonna have her to come back over for round 2 of the dessert session, and I will make sure she will leave happy and full, if y'all know what I mean. So that's him. That is the one and the only, the smooth talk player of the player of the players of the players. He is the best of the best of the best, and all that other good stuff. So let me stop bragging on this young man and let me bring the young man to the virtual roundtable. Y'all give it up for the one, the only, Mr. Toby.
Hey, hey,
Ooh.
hey. Oh man. I always appreciate it. I always appreciate these intros, these mythologies that we've built out. Um and so also, do you happen to hear any like GPS instructions going off?
Nope, I don't hear
Okay,
nothing.
good. Okay, good. I think typically when you're on a call, it doesn't play phone audio like that, but just to make had to make sure. Um
Yeah.
so Yeah, so it's actually funny. You were saying something about at least I give the girl back, right? At least I'm a gentleman enough to give back the girl
Yes.
once I finish borrowing her for her talent. And wholesome. I don't need to do all the do, like you said, unless that's crazy. That's actually crazy. Like if you slip up, then let me come in. And actually, there was a chat. There's this like I'm in this group, this sort of like
Mm-hmm.
BMV social group, and one person like there's a dating sub chat, and one of the people was saying something like he's had to tell guy friends in the past like just know that like if you slip up, I'm gonna be there to take your place, which I think is a wild thing to say. Um, like, but apparently, I don't know if he was just close with her, or there was some history. But for whatever reason, he just felt comfortable enough to tell her basically, yeah, you f up, I'm gonna be there to take the place. I've definitely never done like that actually for real, but you know, there have been situations where people have definitely come to me when their mans weren't, I guess, acting as well, and it's like, kind of, you don't want to be that guy, but you're kind of in a weird position. Um, so, um, some half truths maybe in the jokes that I could relate to. Um, but yeah, how's everyone doing? I'm currently camera off just because I'm coming back from this event, that a company event that actually I didn't even remember until I'm trying to remember if it was literally earlier today. I think it was earlier, or it might have been yesterday, because I just remember seeing an email about it, and I was like, "Wait, what is happening tonight?" I had RSVP'd for this maybe last week, but I didn't register that it was today, and of course, I didn't know it was going to be this cold either. That just sort of happened. Um, that just happened with we have this cold drop, whatever you call it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Ron, you might have been mentioning in one of the chats about. I think it was another thing you mentioned, that it was cold, or like you're getting snow. I'm not getting any snow. We got our snow on Friday night, or not Friday night, but Saturday. Or sorry, I can't do days. This was a holiday weekend, so it was actually Sunday night. I went out Saturday. I think I stayed in Friday, possibly, or I did something different. Saturday I went out, and then Sunday um, I thought of going out for another event, a Caribbean event, two Caribbean events at the same place, two different promoters. But then I saw it was snowing, and I was like, yeah, no, it's snowing. It wasn't going to end snowing until later. I mean, it started snowing really late, so I was like, it's like 9 p.m. or whatever p.m. And then the snow itself wasn't that bad. Like, even when I cleared my car off yesterday, it wasn't that bad, because I was like, I got to clear my car off before the snow gets too frozen and compacted. But it was going to be cold. Like right now, I don't even want to know what temperature it is. Like when I leave my apartment, I can actually check. Or not when I leave my apartment, when I leave my car. Um, so I'm doing this on my phone. So once I leave Google Chrome, it won't completely cut out. I think it'll probably make me like, it'll probably just say that I'm like deactivated, but then I can come back on. But when I check the weather app, I'm afraid that I'm going to see single digit. It was 18 or 16 when I left, and it's going to be a low of like 7 degrees. And then yesterday, it was either last night it was a low. I think tomorrow is going to be another low of like 6 degrees. I was like, what kind of mess? I haven't seen single digit cold like this in a while. Um, I mean, maybe last winter, but I don't remember. Like teams are like, oh man, this is cold, but single digits. I guess if anyway, that's overnight though. So as long as I'm not outside between midnight and 7 a.m., which thank God I'm not. Um, like right now, it might be like 12 degrees. I don't know. But yeah, that's gonna be a little rough. But I'm planning to be inside. Like I was not gonna go outside if not for this company event. So I was like, oh my gosh. But thankfully, it's I can deal with it, because again, I wasn't out all night. I just was out for corporate stuff, like Mixer, Black Culture Org, kind of just someone giving their life advice on a panel. Well, he was a speaker. It wasn't a panel. It was like one speaker with the guy asking questions, and then we could ask questions afterwards. And so it wasn't like this is not an all night type thing. Even like a happy hour that can go to like 11 p.m. You know, that would probably be a bit tragic, because by the time I come back, it's going to start hitting that single digit. But coming back at 9 p.m., we can do this.
Yeah.
I just got to park and then walk briskly, and then very briskly, to my apartment, because I don't have like a dedicated parking spot. So
I get it.
I got to park where I can park.
Yeah. Well, we got Rocky in there. What's up, Rocky? Good to see you, sir. Good to see you.
Hey, Rocky, what's up?
just to kind of give everybody a heads up. So I live in Michigan, and y'all probably gonna see the city that I live in. Is Three Rivers. So I don't know if y'all can see this or not, but it says as of right now, that's -4.
Whoa, snap!
Yeah, -4. And yeah, we got snow. We've been getting snow like off and on, but we're right now -4. The high for today was like 3 degrees. And it hasn't been this low since my family moving back from Colorado back to Michigan. I think the last time we've hit like negative degrees when I was probably like a kid. Like that says a lot, especially for folks that live in Michigan and the surrounding area. Yeah, -4 ain't no joke. Brr! Yes. Go, yeah. Which is crazy because even down south, like I know my sister, she lives down in Texas, and like they got hit with some snow too, and even like some other parts of the southern states, they've been getting slapped around with some snow, like some nice size snow. Where as I was just on YouTube, not YouTube, I was on Yahoo, just kind of just scrolling through the news section, and like legit dude has a legit snowball in his hand, but to throw it at somebody. I'm like, sheesh. Y'all know it's cold. Mm-mm-mm. But yeah, young Gucci Man done said it. He said, "Brr." He come out to Michigan. He definitely gonna say, "Brr." Like, nah, I want to go back home. I want to go back home. But yeah, no, we got snow. It melts a little bit. Then it pretty much froze. I know. Talking to the missus earlier in the day, and she was doing some little research. She was saying that once the spring time rolls in, or once the weather starts getting a little bit warmer, we could mess around and get like some winter quakes. And basically, what that is when the the snow gets to the cracks of the roads and the ground, and it freezes and it expands. When it warms up, it thaws and it'll crack. And so some parts of Michigan are gonna get that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right, Rocky. This part right here. That part right there. Right here. Yep. What you just said. Right there. All of that. All of that. I mean, I look at it down like Texas. We'll use Texas as an example. We'll pick on Texas. Like, who would have thought it was snowing in Texas out of all places? Like, come on now. And again, we ain't talking about no dust and no. We talking about snow. Like Michigan went down south and brought the snow with it, kind of snow, you know. And even then, like tomorrow, don't worry, he'll be back. And even then, like tomorrow, like I was saying before, our school is closed just due to the fact that the wind chill is going, especially first thing in the morning, is going to be like way below zero. So we're talking about like -4, 5, 6 degrees, which no kid should be out that time of day. Like, nah. Mm-mm, mm-mm. So Thursday, Friday, we'll be back in school, which it's a good thing, which means we have a short week. So, like, it's cool. I could do with a short week. Could definitely do a short week and really just get some stuff done and all that other good stuff. But yeah, so I know Rocky, I know you're out on the West Coast. How are things going on your end, man? Like, you doing okay? You doing all right? If for anybody else that's in the chat, if you're down south, West Coast, East Coast, Midwest, like, let us know how y'all doing. like I said, just let us know how you guys are doing. Let us know how you guys are holding up, because the weather patterns is, like I said, it's crazy, silly crazy, and we know that it was expected to happen. It's just what we're gonna do from here now. The only thing we do is go up. The only thing we can do is to go up, because sheesh, this mess is atrocious. This mess is atrocious. But anyway, as we're waiting on Toby to come in and anything else, who watched the game last night? Like, I think, and when I mean the Ohio State and Notre Dame game. Like, I'm not a fan of either or. Let's be honest, I'm not a fan. However, I just don't like Ohio State, so I will. Yeah, the college championship game. Yep, that one. Again, not a fan of either school. Not a fan. However, I was rooting for Notre Dame to actually win this one. Like, I wanted them to win this one, because why not? It's Ohio State. But then again, like I said, I'm not an Ohio State fan. However, because of the fact that Coach Day was pretty much like paper thin of getting fired, that messed around, took the team to the playoffs, made it to the championship, and actually won that bad boy. I think from that standpoint, that deserves some kudos, and to those, flaky Ohio State fans. Sucks to be y'all. Y'all over here was saying off with this man's head, off with his head, and now y'all probably was congratulating, like, yeah, he's the best coach. He never doubted him. Like, man, if y'all going somewhere, y'all don't going somewhere. Like, they can talk all their trash, like, well, at least we won the national championship. Like, yeah, but we still beat y'all. Michigan fan still beat y'all, so it don't even matter anymore. Like, we beat y'all 4 years in a row. And not only that, even though we didn't get to go to the playoffs, which is fine, we still beat Alabama again. So yeah, yeah, this is true. This is true. However, I will say this much. I will say this much. I think number one on Notre Dame, great house. I think they did not utilize him the way how he was supposed to be used, because he was one of those impact players along with Love from Notre Dame, number four. Again, both of those guys are impact players. Why not utilize them more often? I mean, granted, yes, the quarterback, he did get some yards, he did make some plays, which is fine, And I'm the type of person where if you can't stop the run, I'm gonna keep running it. However, there were some costly plays. I'm kind of like, man, you should have probably just air that bad boy out. Just air it out. Let the wide receiver make a play. And like I said, Great House, yes, he came up big. He came up big for Notre Dame, but they should have been doing that in the first half. You know, should have been did that. However, I will say this much too: defense did not step up whatsoever. Sure, granted. Did they get the fumble? Yes, but it was still too little, too late. Should have been done again in the first half. Should have been done in the first half. Defense let that ball game get away crazy quick. Crazy quick. So I think, in my opinion, for Notre Dame, especially Notre Dame moving forward, if they want to have another run like they did this year, they have to do better on the deepest side of the ball. Offense, yeah, they were slowly cooking and everything else, but defense, man, they got tore up like no other. I mean, and again, granted, they arguably in the country had one of the best defenses in the country. I get it, but also at the same time, it's like, listen, you guys are playing like quality teams now. You guys are playing like very physical teams, and especially teams like Ohio State, who not only are they physical, but they're fast. They're just fast, right? Like with Oregon, again, they're physical, but they're fast. They rely on speed. And honestly, I do not think that Notre Dame had anybody fast enough to compete with the guys on Ohio State. So, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I agree. I agree. However, um, there's been talks with Marcus Freeman, the coach from Notre Dame. There's been talks about him going into the NFL and doing coaching there. But then again, Coach Ryan Day, depending upon how everything plays out, he was also there was also talks, not him saying this verbatim, but there were also talks with him going to the pros as well, depending upon how the season goes. Now, one or two things, and and again, we can go around the mill with this one before we get into the topic tonight. One or two things. If Ryan Day and Marcus Freeman, if they both go to the pros, like what team would they go for, lean towards? Which team would kind of be better suited for the style that they kind of bring? But then again, not only that, but you also got Deion Sanders, who is also considering leaving Colorado to go to the pros. And I know from talks in that little weird circle, there's talks he could go down to Dallas, which I mean, it's like, okay, I get it. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, true. In in the circle to that point too as well. Like the last so this year and the last 3 years, okay. We'll go to the last 3 years for Ohio State. They had CJ Stroud go the to the league. They had Justice Fields going to the league. They also had who was it? JT or TJ Barrett. Again, another solid quarterback who went to the league. You had Ezekiel Elliott. He went to the league. You had Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver. He went out to the league. And so all of these players who, and again, yes, were highly recruited. They did a little stint and they went to the league. Like, I get it. I get it. But at the same time, it's like the way how Ohio State kind of does its recruiting. Like, sure, we're thinking about longevity, but a lot of these players are like, man, I'd rather go somewhere else. And even if they don't go to the league, let's say they go to another conference team and whatnot and play there. Okay, cool, great, awesome. But at the same time, Ohio State, they do get some solid players from other teams as well. So it's kind of like it's one of those juggling acts, if you would, you know. Uh-huh. True, true, true. But I will say this much though. I will say this that with we'll take Freeman, the way how they recruited and the way how he formulated the team. And again, this is not his first time playing Ohio State. Seems like they're what their second, third time playing against Ohio State, and the games were pretty much close, nail biters, if you would. And so for him, it was kind of like that black eye that never fully healed, and they got hit again. So it's like, yeah, you made it to the championship. You got off on a good start, and whatever happened after that good start, maybe not enough. Maybe not enough. But even still, then I mean, the simple fact to the matter that Notre Dame made it to the playoffs, period, says a lot. And even then, when you look at their record, again, their record says a lot too as well. And I get it. I get it. Again, I get it. Their record, they probably didn't play like the best teams, but at the same time, I mean, they did have a very good, solid playoff run. So you got to give them credit where credit is due. Yeah, yeah, I get it. I get it. I get it. But I mean, I will say this much for the Jets at least. Jets need a whole new like overhaul of everybody. Just start fresh and just go from there. Raiders, I'm with you. Like, Cowboys, again, get rid of everybody. Get rid of everybody. Start fresh. Jaguars, Saints, iffy, right? Iffy places. Very iffy. Very iffy. Very iffy. Not saying that it could do well, not saying it could turn some things around, but it's very iffy. So we'll see. We'll see. But even then, like I was saying before, like with Ryan Day and Deion Sanders, with they're looking at going to the NFL, and it's kind of hard to say where they will end up going if they decide to go coach. Me personally, I would rather have Deion to stay at Colorado. I would rather have Ryan to stay at Ohio State for like another year. And yeah, yeah, we all, well, yeah, Jerry, we ain't gonna worry about Jerry. We ain't gonna worry about Jerry. We ain't worry about Jerry. Jerry ain't trying to win for real. You right. He ain't trying to win for real. He not trying to do some things for real. But then again, like you got all these players on the roster who are making $100 million, and yet they're not even playing as if they're worth $100 million. Got to do something different. Got to do something different. I understand he's trying to see it through, but my boy, got to do something different because it ain't working. Then again, you're not necessarily America's team anymore, so somebody else got to do it. But I will True. 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 And true. And it's just really just one of those. It's really interesting to see how that dynamic is going to work out. Anyways, it's really interesting to see how that dynamic is going to work out. So let me get my homie back on the stage. You good?
Yeah, though this. Hold on. I have two. Okay. Hopefully that should be fine. I just had to get rid of the mobile one. Yeah. All right, cool. No echo. Awesome. Yeah, buddy. What's going on, everyone? Actually in the flesh.
There you go.
Not just the voice. I'm really not. Yeah, I'm bad when it comes to college sports. Now, I mean, I'm not even just sports in general. I've been getting more into NBA because I've actually been following someone who I found last summer, like during the NBA playoffs. I found like a play-by-play. Because normally I was able to kind of just like use like my other. I had other subscriptions like HBO Max. I had Amazon Prime. I was able to hop from thing to thing if I really wanted to catch NBA games. But then there were some times where you had no choice but to have either live cable or to have like an NBA Plus. I was like, I'm not doing NBA Plus because that thing's ridiculous. Like, or ESPN Plus. I think both. You can do ESPN and NBA, but I was just like, yeah, we're not doing this. Like 7-day free trial, then charge some absurd amount. I think Disney Plus has incorporated now ESPN, but like you still had to upcharge that. And I didn't want that. I already had like a 99-cent a month intro offer. It was like $1.99. It was like $2 or $2 or $3 for Disney Plus and Hulu. So I was like, yeah, I'm just not watching these games. But I found this one YouTube channel that does like a pretty good. He's not huge. I mean, he has some 10, I don't know, maybe 15 to 20, 25,000. I mean, that's not bad at all. But like, I still consider him kind of like a relatively small, but you know, I watched his games for the playoffs, some of the playoffs, and then the finals. And then I kind of fell off because I wasn't watching other stuff, but I started rewatching his streams. But I really made it regular, like in the past month or two. I feel like I've always caught his streams whenever he goes live for the Celtics. I've been catching some of his other games, like the Thunders, Thunder versus the Cavs. So for me, it's like all very new. Like I've watched games before, but it was never regular. But now I'm actually like, oh, this is actually kind of cool. Like I don't know if I would be like a regular, like because that's a lot of like a lot of time and energy, just like any other hobby and any other thing. But with college sports, I was starting to peruse a little bit because I mean he himself does broadcasting for college games. So this guy, this YouTube channel, I mean, he's young. He's probably like my age, like 29 or so. And he does college. Like he has the job where he can sign up for broadcasting live for different colleges in the New England area. I guess I would say it's a coincidence, but it is a Celtics channel, so it makes sense that he's from Massachusetts. But coincidence, like I didn't know this guy. I didn't follow anything just except seeing the Celtics game that he did the play-by-play. And so he actually announces live college games, especially women's basketball. And then there's apparently some other sports he's done. So I'm like, okay, this is kind of interesting. Let me look in the landscape of some of these other teams. Like he'll sometimes during the timeouts or during the halftime, he'll talk about all the other college games. He'll sometimes talk about football, but he's mostly like basketball. So he'll talk about different college games. And he was saying like, yeah, I don't know about NC State or UNC maybe. He was like, a team that normally should be good, like they've been doing really bad this year. He talked about some other teams. Some coach got fired recently, maybe some weeks or months ago. That might have been the NBA too. There have been coaches getting fired left and right, but some college games, there might have been coaches that were going to get fired or not. The Patriots coach, Gerard Mayo, maybe the first black coach. I don't know. I don't know if that's true. He got fired, but I mean that record was really bad, so it was gonna have to happen. And I, was never really a Patriots fan anyway, even living up north. But it is interesting, like just to see like all these different things. People like I saw the news about this game, like in my notifications was like Ohio State, Notre Dame, and I was like, oh, there was a champion game. I was like, that must be football because I'm thinking March Madness is until obviously March, and I'm not following college football at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, oh, that was college football. I didn't even know they were having a champion game. And then the NFL, I don't generally watch football. I just kind of keep up with the scores. But I actually did watch like maybe half or right before the half, maybe for the Ravens versus Lions. No, not Lions. Lions that was eliminated. Or Ravens versus Buffalo Bills.
There you go.
Heartbreaking. Like I'm like, this is why I don't watch sports because why did I watch like? Well, I only saw one turnover, but apparently there were like 3 turnovers that games, and then there was like a missed catch at the end. Which honestly, even though it sucks that he missed it, that's like the least damning thing that happened because it was a tough catch in tough conditions, in my opinion. Yeah, he should have gripped it, but also very last second. It shouldn't have even gotten to that point. Like, that's what I'd say. It shouldn't have gotten to the point where it was like 21-19 or whatever the heck the score was by 2. So, any case, I was like, this is why I don't watch sports because I can't be getting my blood pressure up for things I barely even care about. But, I mean, I saw the Ravens. I never seen their game. That actually would be fun. But I was in college my freshman year. 2012 to 13. So the 13 Super Bowl was the first time I ever watched a Super Bowl. And it was like, a college watch party just with some friends. And of course, we're all in, this is UMBC. And so it's Baltimore. I just got to take care of that. How do I change this? Start. Windows Update wants me to update. No, go away. I can see being a fan of Jaylen Brown. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I know everyone was talking about Jaylen Brown. So there's so many people. Jaylen Brown, of course, Celtics, awesome. Yeah, I mean, I like him, and I didn't even know about all his like background with like being like really sciencey and like and he's really big and invested in the community and like just I mean, he's like someone who's just like overqualified to be like. This man is like, not that other people weren't smart, because of course a lot of people went to college, so of course they majored in something, but like still, it's just like this man like could have had an internship at NASA, all this other stuff. So, and I think the Celtics just in a lot of ways are more chill. Like some people say they don't like Celtics because they're boring, but I'm like, actually, I'm kind of here for it. Methodical, get the job done. Sometimes it can be frustrating to watch when there are games that I feel like what's happening right here. Like I'm not gonna pretend that I could be doing what they're doing, but even other people who follow them more are like, "Yo, what is going on with you guys? You should be doing better." But I don't know. It's kind of fun. Like you get invested into the players and you appreciate the contributions. For college ball, I mean UMBC, I kind of given up. I don't watch regularly, but I just found out UMBC, the coach who won that March Madness upset against UVA, Ryan Odom, he left to go to Utah, which I knew that he left at some point, but it didn't click that he like took a lot of his really good players to Utah. And so the UMBC team is now kind of trash, unfortunately. I mean, they're like 7-7, but that's not good. They used to be the number 1 seed. Like they weren't even number 1, but then at some point they became the number 3 seed, and then they became the number 1 seed. And so I was like, yo, UMBC out of nowhere is in the Northeast athletic, like the whatever that conference, and like we're the number 1, beating Hartford even, and Hartford and Vermont are very good schools. And now it's like, oh, we're trash again. Like it's just actually very sad. So I'm like, college ball, I don't really have a stake in this anymore. So it is what. Oh, but what I was saying before, Ron, you left. I think I saw my first Super Bowl for the Ravens versus the 49ers. Which I know, Rocky, for you, you're probably going to rep the 49ers because it's your home state. But for me, I was like, Ravens, y'all better win. And it was a close game. When I look back at it, I'm like, yo, that was actually a very scarily close game. But we did win. And that's the last time the Ravens won, 2023. So the fact that they've all of a sudden gotten like superstar good, where people are like, they're the team to beat, and then we just like lose off the 3 interceptions. I mean, maybe I'll rewatch the game because I only saw about halfway, so I only saw one of the interceptions watching live, the last one. But when I saw some of the replays for the other ones, I was like, oh, that's kind of horrifying. But anyway, and then the Commanders, I didn't watch the game, but I was pleasantly surprised because the Commanders have been a very bad team for a very long time. And it was a running joke, like being a Skins fan, Redskins, like, I mean, some really immature humor, the brown skins, the doo-doo skins, whatever you want to call them. Like, I heard things like this growing up in Maryland. And so now that the Commanders are like good, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, this, and I haven't been following the season again just because life has been life. And the football season would have started like late, sometime in the summer, so, or even before. But like, yeah, that time I just wasn't following football for real. But I kept hearing how Ravens were good, and I knew the Ravens had lost a game last year in the semis, or maybe the same level they lost this year. Regardless, the Commanders, that's exciting. We didn't get the battle of the Beltways, Baltimore Beltway versus DC Beltway. That's what people were hoping for. Oh, let's go. That's how I feel. I'm like, whenever, I don't know what it is. I'm not a fan really either. Mark Andrews, he might not be safe in Baltimore, even he's normally. Yeah, that's what people were saying. It's like, this man better not show up in Baltimore. But I don't know. All that to say that sports is it's an interesting thing. It's its own culture. I'm in a group me, like I mentioned before, where this might have been before you were on, Rocky, but there was a group me, and there's like a dating chat, very active chat. People love to talk and cause drama and mess. But there's a sports chat which I really don't ever look at all. But now I've been looking at it because of all this like stuff going on. Okay, so we actually got further up. We lost to the Chiefs, and then the Chiefs went against the is it the Eagles? No, last year wasn't the Eagles. That was 2 years ago, right? Last year
was it the Niners?
Oh, probably, yeah. No, good. I mean, I wanted the Chiefs to win anyway, but if it was the Niners, extra good. I mean, I don't know. Like, I was born in Missouri. I don't really claim it, but I was born in Missouri, and I think for me, the Chiefs just seem like, man, this is like good. Plus, just to stick it to the conspiracy theorists who are like, oh, Taylor Swift is going to get proposed to, and they're going to endorse Biden. Just for like that nonsense strain of right wing, whatever theories. Part of me was just like, no, please let the Chiefs win, so that way we can just like. It's just annoying. Like, why is this like become like your like proxy war? But like, okay, now I just want the Chiefs to win so that people can be big mad. And I think even the Biden Twitter, he like had like a dark Brandon name, like all according to plan. And I was like, whoever's running the Biden Twitter, like, actually kind of genius, because everyone kept saying like, oh, this is like manufactured so that way there'll be extra attention, and then Travis Kelce can propose to Taylor Swift, and then they can endorse Biden. And I was like, what's wrong with you people? So I was happy that the Chiefs could win, just to stick it to all those people who wanted them to lose. So, oh snap, I just saw President Manny. So we are talking about sports right now. So we might be, we're talking about sports, but the reason, of course, we are even doing this topic is because President Manny made a great observation that MLK Day was the same day as Inauguration. And I mean, I haven't read a lot of think pieces or anything on it or videos, but it is an interesting thing to discuss. And President Manny did come on here. I'm trying to remember when it was. I don't know if it was last year or if it was the year before, but I remember when you came and we had like a back-to-back. That was kind of funny. We had like a Monday and a Tuesday night that he came on, or one of those days he came on, and that was actually really, really cool. So yeah, I mean, we're here in the back. The two of us are cool with it. Manny, you obviously asked, so you're cool with it. So, I mean, Ron, I know you're like you have kind of the more technical background, admin privileges, but I think I could speak for us and say, yeah, man, come on, August 28th. Okay, good memory, man. Good memory, President Manny. So I forgot who else mentioned something about the script. I think someone mentioned it. I mean, maybe it was you, Rocky, in one of the Discord chats, but I think in my other group me I'm in, someone mentioned something about that script as well. And I know people say that a lot. I mean, I guess that's interesting. Like, did the script demand? Someone said that the script demanded Mark Andrews drop the ball. And the laser focus memory. Ravens lost to the Chiefs. Oh my gosh, if the Chiefs win again, that'd actually be wild though. Like I'm not in hater mode where I'm like they have to be stopped. It would be nice to see someone else, not the Bills. I mean, whatever. The Bills could win. I'm annoyed. The Commanders would be amazing, but I don't think anyone's favoring them, even though they've been doing really well with Jaden Daniels, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I would be happy to see the Commanders just go off, but I don't know what the main predictions are, to be honest, with the other teams. And I like the Eagles. Some people around here don't like the Eagles, but I actually like the Eagles. I've always liked them, even when I was in like middle school. I always just thought they were cool. I like the green. So my rankings were Ravens first, then Commanders second, then the Eagles third. Obviously, Ravens, goodbye. So now it's the Commanders of the Eagles, who I'm trying to see win all of it. It's considered.
I mean, not wrong.
That is interesting. NFL is an entertainment company. Oh, that's so interesting. So I looked it up. The first thing I looked up when I said NFL entertainment company, I see something from Reddit, the Detroit Lions subreddit from a year ago. And someone said, don't you think it's funny that the biggest screw jobs in football all happen in prime time when the most amount of people are watching? The favorite darling team usually gets the win, so everyone is either happy or extremely upset. That way everyone is talking about the product. No such thing as bad press. It's definitely something the NFL lives by. And so that's so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, it's, I guess, WWE, right? That is literally entertainment, right? So I can it's a production company, yeah. So that's an interesting parallel. I really don't. That would be sad if it really is. Oh my God, that's literally. So I didn't know the Seahawks history, but I remember watching that game because I remember being in Seattle a few days after that Super Bowl to go to a computer science conference. I may have talked about this before. I was in the conference Wednesday to Saturday or Friday, and obviously the Super Bowl had just happened on Sunday. So it was just insane, like trying to get downtown, and there was crowds. Metro was doing weird things in the schedule, or the light rail, whatever the overhead ones are called. And yeah, I mean that year they won, but then the next year they lost, right? Because that whole thing about like, hey Seahawks, do you want to win the game? And it's like, nah, I'll pass. I remember seeing those memes, and it's like, yo, even I, as a non-watcher, I was like my third Super Bowl I'd seen. I was like, that seemed like a questionable decision to me. To pass. The last. And I remember seeing the face of, was it Marshawn Lynch or whoever it was? The memes from that face. I was like, yo, this is actually fantastic. I was like, maybe I should watch more of these games.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that running the ball, like, even just watching the Ravens, even though they lost, watching some of those drives where they really were able to just run the ball almost down the whole field, I was like, yo, these people, like, when you know what you're doing and you have that defense, it's all above me. Like, I couldn't tell you the name of any of these plays, but it's actually very, very technical. And I feel like I would find it interesting if I really delve into it. Like RPI, the defensive coordinator for the Patriots was an RPI alum, because I saw Rensselaer magazine sometime after maybe I graduated from there, or like an Instagram post, and it was like engineering the Patriots defense, and I was like, yeah, an RPI grad. That's just like so funny. Like one of the most technical universities in the country, and then you go become the defensive coordinator for arguably at that time the best team in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
So no, it takes a lot of talent, a lot of brain power to come up with that type of play. Tons of athleticism. Okay, but to transition, Ron.
Transition. So, Manny, look in your Discord DM. I sent you the link there. So, to kind of circle back to the main topic, I know we've been talking about sports for like, the first hour, which is fine because we're gonna, it's Manny time.
Hey,
because kind of want to lessen the blow a little bit if we can, because what's again the title of the stream, when dreams and nightmares become real. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's becoming very, very, very real. I was talking to my pastor yesterday, actually, and we're talking, laughing, and of course, there was a clip during the championship game for college football that showed Trump and what he was saying in his inauguration and whatnot. We're like, yeah, whatever. And so we're talking. He was like, he was like, I really do. He's like, I don't like the way how this country is going to go. He said, I'm hoping I'm wrong. He said, but I got a feeling deep down in my gut. He's like, it's going to get rough. It is going to get rough. Oh, who is this? Well, Mr. McDerby.
Hello, McDerby.
Yeah, good to see you. Glad to have you on here, or see you, or whatnot. So, coming to the stage now, we got the person with the most knowledge, and here we go. Okay.
On different.
Okay.
Which account were you before? I'm guessing you're your YouTube viewer. President Musk. Hey.
Here we go. Hey. Who's 1900s Rugrat? I don't know. This is going to get interesting. I mean, don't get me wrong, I grew up on the Rugrats. But anyways, circle back. We got President Manny. He's in the house. Ooh, cold. And what the heck was let's bring our one and only, the president in the house.
Hi, everybody. Good to see all of you here.
Hey.
Good to see you guys.
Good to see you.
Mm-hmm. Gil in the house.
And also, forgive me for mispronouncing your name. Is it Gwil? I probably mispronounced that. I apologize in advance if you're offended. I hope I didn't get that wrong. Well, he's in the house too, is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, yeah, Gil.
Oh, it's Gil? Oh, okay.
It's Gil.
Well, okay. Sorry for mispronouncing your name, Gil. Well, it's good to see you guys. I can't believe this.
Yo, hold on. Wait a minute. Hold on. Before we go on it, big sir, or ma'am, whomever you are, like, I don't think my man would do anything like that. Nah, that's going against his character. That's going against his character. Matter of fact, hold on. I know how to deal with y'all. Hold up. So, Toby, I'm gonna go ahead and let y'all have at it. I gotta do some house cleaning.
Yeah, I got you.
Let me go ahead and clean house real quick.
Yes, sir. Do what you need to do. It's been it's been a year and let me see, almost a year and a half since you were on, Manny.
Yeah, that's right.
And the reason why we had Manny on before August, as he said in the chat, in 2022.
The first time we chatted was about the life and legacy of Martin Luther King. I think that was back in 2021.
Yeah,
and then it was 2 years later, and we talked about what did we talk about? We talked about the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington.
Yes, right, because that was a big thing. I had just moved back to the DMV May 2023, and I knew people who I think wanted to do something in the area, but I wasn't as plugged in to some of the groups that I am now. And like my friend group of just Maryland natives, I didn't necessarily have a read on them if they were going to be involved in this speech, or like the whatever organizing was being done around that time. So like this time, like if it happened last year, I actually may have been more inclined to have like gone to DC and try to see what was going on. But yes, I remember you mentioned it. I actually had a friend in Boston, or she's from Providence actually. She was on the stream once. She was the vice president of the Providence branch of the NAACP, and I think she was trying to come to the area for that 60th anniversary, because that's big. That's history, And so you gave your insight, which was really cool. I might actually find that and just link it in the Discord for people who are curious to watch, who may not have been able to catch. But as I mentioned, because we had MLK Day and Inauguration yesterday, and since you had mentioned it some weeks back, I know I think we're still in post-holiday slump, or there's a lot of things that are going on. And so I remember catching that message and I was like, oh, let me respond to this a few days ago, because I thought it was an interesting idea. And so, yeah, that's, I'm kind of curious on your take, Manny, like what you obviously saw this kind of significance. Other people have seen it too. As you are kind of a resident historian, I'm kind of curious what this moment in history lends itself to, like what you see MLK's legacy, like all these years later, and kind of this intersection. I mean, you had Kamala Harris, who, of course, came up unsuccessful in her run. The country was not going that direction. We didn't kind of advertise this as a topic, but there's a lot of stuff about DEI that just got stripped from yesterday's executive orders. And so there's a lot of things with DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives, at least in the federal government, gone. So all that to say, I'm kind of curious on like, what are the themes we're seeing with like, okay, it was MLK Day and then Trump just starts his new term like this, and even just the mood of the country where we are historically, maybe how is this comparative to earlier decades with maybe race, or just, I'm spitballing, but I'll let you, I guess, have your first thoughts on everything.
Well, before I answer your inquiry, I just wanted to say these are not novels. These are history books. Actually, I don't own any novels. I don't really read any of them. Just to say that. I think that the significance of this day in history is. I think we're entering into a really. I don't want to say we're entering into a dark period, because I don't want to look at the glass half empty. At the same time, I think we need to be cautious and be mindful of what lies ahead. I think right now, economically, we're not really doing well. We're not doing well as far as our perception in the rest of the world. It's difficult to say what President Trump is going to do, but we'll just have to wait and see. I think we're going to have to really pay attention within the first 100 days to see what this term will bring. The significance of the fact that it's also on a Martin Luther King Day, I think that Martin Luther King still resonates with a great many people. I think a lot of the younger generation really don't know who he was or really know enough about him. But I have to say, thankfully, there was a book that came out about 2 years ago called King, A Life by Jonathan Eig. I actually bought this rather recently. This is I recently read this book, and I have to say that this is one of the best books about Martin Luther King that I've ever read. In fact, it's one of the best books I've ever read, period. So in regards to this book, it gives us more into an insight to King's private life, but it also gives a sense of inspiration as to what we can take from this life, and we could kind of use this as kind of like a guidebook as to how to navigate the same waters that he faced. And so I would say that in these times when there are no heroes around and when there are no leaders that we can look up to, that we can look to the past and we can take inspiration from those who came before us, see what they did, and try to emulate the good that they sought to do.
It's interesting. That's interesting. That is a book I'm definitely gonna put. I mean, I'm more so bad with like actually coming back and reading books. I think just because the attention economy, I've been more consuming video. But I have had different books that I've ordered, said I'm going to put on my backlog. So that book, can you say the name of it again? I know Gil asked, and I'm curious.
It's simply called King, A Life, and it's by Jonathan Eig.
Great.
It's a fantastic book. It's highly readable. What this book does is this is the first biography of Martin Luther King that's come out in 30 years. Well, 35 years, because the previous one came out back in 1982. So this is a brand new updated, and it's also based on newly declassified FBI files on Martin Luther King, which will be released sometime within the coming years.
Okay. I didn't know about a new one being. You said what is it exactly that's being released?
Martin Luther King's FBI files.
Wow. Oh, is that because of the declassification?
Yeah, because he was wiretapped at the insistence of Director J. Edgar Hoover.
Yeah. Whew. A lot going on there in our wonderful history. No, I'm definitely going to take notes on these things because it would just be good to know. Like, it doesn't. I don't have to wait to Black History Month or another anniversary, but it's a good thing to keep in mind as milestones happen. Like, hey, there's more information to look into. Like that one video, even there was like a YouTube video that we watched. I don't remember if this was with you. It probably was Manny, actually. Like there was some YouTube videos that, free, just kind of like effectively documentary of King's life. Some of it was in color, which was actually very interesting to watch, and kind of how they explain like how he would kind of get people very loosened up by like making jokes.
Are you talking about King in the Wilderness? It's an HBO documentary that came out back in 2018.
Probably because it's on YouTube, right? Free, just like an hour and a half or so.
That's correct.
Yeah,
yes.
Yep, exactly. And so watching that,
I go through that once a year.
Oh, good. Yeah, no, it is really, that's something I probably could even share on my socials. It's just interesting to like have these resources that people may not know about, and it's like, hey, did you know about these different things about a figure? And even on I'm so inactive on my social media, but I went on, or at least Instagram. I went on Instagram, saw someone put on their story. Actually, this guy I'm pretty sure was active in the Yang. Hey, TMC. We got Misha in the house. Yes. Admin of the year. So yes. I remember this guy Dominic had posted on his story on Instagram, and I reshared because normally I stay so far away from IG, but like I happened to look at his stories, saw him post something about how MLK is whitewashed effectively, oftentimes how we learn it. And so I think it's always great for people to see, like, hey, you may not have known this. You should probably look and see XYZ resources that you may not have learned in high school, middle school. Because it's life, it's all about lifelong learning and just keeping things in context, re-digging up things we may not have known before, on and on and on.
Well, yeah, I could tell you that that in learning about Dr. King's life, especially after reading this book, I came away with a brand new respect for him. And after reading this book, I felt as though I got to spend time with him. I really felt like, I mean, it was very easy to like Martin. It feels like, after reading this book, it feels like you're close to him. So I would definitely highly recommend, if anybody can get this copy, well, not this copy, this one's staying with me, but but if anybody can get a copy of this book, definitely get it and keep it, and tell your friends all about it too.
No, seriously, I appreciate that.
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just said seriously, I appreciate that. Go ahead. What were you about to say?
Oh no, I wanted to also mention that I also wanted to share what I did on for the past several days. So on Martin Luther King's birthday, I bought this book at the Harvard bookstore in Cambridge, which is right across from Harvard University. So I bought the book, and then I ended up. I got inspired because I thought that I could, since I lived in near Boston, I actually took this book with me to different places that are associated with Dr. King, because Dr. King came and studied at Boston University. He also lived. He had 2 apartments in Boston, and this is where Boston is where he met his wife, Coretta. So Boston played a very significant role in shaping his philosophy and in shaping his academic interests, and also in his education, in furthering his own personal education. So this is a place that, but what I'm really trying to say is that I took this book and took took the book and took pictures of it in different places that were associated with him, and I posted it on Instagram. And the author of this book actually reached out to me, and that on the 20th, on Inauguration Day, and simultaneously Martin Luther King Day. So I just wanted to share that. Yeah. I know it's not relevant, but I thought I'd share it.
No, that's interesting. Like, I think one thing someone said, I can't remember what group this was, but someone said something like, try to make MLK not just a day off, but a day on. Or they may have not.
Yes, I believe that was Dexter Scott King, who was Martin Luther King's son. I believe he was the one that coined that, if I'm not mistaken.
Interesting. Okay, so I didn't know. I figured, of course, someone must have said it in like the ether. But I know, like, I had just seen it from someone in like some group that I'm in. But that's actually great. I'm going to look at that. And if I remember correctly, Dexter, is he the one that kind of passed away recently?
Yes, he passed away a few years ago. That's correct.
Oh, the 22nd. Wow, my goodness, that is literally on or after the week. I think last year MLK Day was a little earlier, so it might have been a week after MLK Day last year. That's really tough.
Yeah, it is. So now there's only 2 of his children left.
Okay.
And that would be Martin Luther King III and Bernice. I believe they live in Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Yeah. No, you go ahead, Ron.
I would say, because I know Bernice, she was at the coin toss for the game last night.
Oh, okay.
Yep. It was like pretty cool. Nice of her to show up and that other good stuff. So yeah, because I know there were some other questions that were asked.
Like what I was saying. Well, Oh yeah. So it's funny because Musk has just made the news. Again, I know some people who've been Uji haters of Musk. I generally liked him and what he was trying to do, minus some of his more erratic tendencies. I mean, some of them were very bad, like calling someone a pedo because the person criticized him, and there were things that were clearly not good. But I thought, like, okay, at least in terms of what he's trying to do, I respect, um, SpaceX, and of course you have Tesla, which is like the OG. Well, if you want to go OG, you can talk about PayPal and some other stuff. But in terms of really under him, like Tesla is what we really, really know him for. And so I was like, yeah, good. Do these things. Now I'm just like, I don't know, like it's not just politics because okay, people can decide to become conservative, whatever, but like you gotta be someone who just like promotes truth and doesn't just like blast rampant disinformation. I mean, let's not even use that word if you don't want. Like, just things that are not true, like stuff with the relief down in North Carolina, and this whole thing with in LA. Of course, we've made shout outs to the fires that are going on in California. I hope that everyone was able to get out, rebuild, get the money they need, all of that. But like in North Carolina, I mean, they had tragic, hurricane that one hit them, Helene, and then like there's all the stuff that Musk is talking about that's just like what, like just like reposting some of the things that are like there was like maybe a sheriff or someone who was like FEMA. If I've heard FEMA stealing from the people, and the guy like basically posted this tweet that got a disturbing number of likes and positive comments about like him threatening to like shoot any FEMA worker he sees that's going to steal from them. And I'm like, what is going on? And Elon Musk, why are you reposting this? As if this has any merit. I mean, hey, if someone could show some kind of corruption, please, I have no problem with it being exposed. But as far as I know, that was just nonsense. And so maybe when it comes to his other ventures, cool, he's doing some things. SpaceX is probably the most successful, I would say. It's probably the most revolutionary, and it is good to democratize space or democratize quote unquote. I mean, NASA, though, I mean, they are government funded, and I think what they're doing is important. Or NASA is a government agency, but I just think like there's some things that have gone off the rails that aren't just politics in themselves, but they're just like really not great. I don't stay on X, Twitter. I really don't care that much, so I don't see the worst of it. But like, I think I saw something. I'll post this on Reddit, or I'll share the Reddit link probably in the Discord. But there was something where Sam Altman, or not Sam Altman, wrong person, Sam Harris. He was saying how he and Elon Musk actually share a lot of similarities. They kind of both are somewhat in the anti-woke space. I mean, Sam Harris is not right wing, but like he has that intellectual dark web brain, which sometimes will be critical of certain maybe too liberal tendencies or however you want to mention it. And he said that he agreed with Elon Musk on a bunch of things, but because at some point he called out Elon Musk for like, I don't even know, like he said something that just wasn't true or something some years ago. Elon Musk took it personally, like the Michael Jordan thing. I took it personal, and he just started like trash talking apparently Sam Harris a lot, and just kept having a feud with him. And at some point, it's just like, what is going on? Like, even if you ideologically agree with some things, there's just something that's off, right? That's just you can't be like pathologically lying almost or doing things like it almost seems like who are you as a person? Are you saying the things that you believe? Are you actually true to this, or are you just trying to like? I mean, not that he needs clout, but that's just the sad part. It's like you have a whole multiple companies you're running. It's not like you need clout, but for whatever reason, you like need attention and are doing things that just don't make a lot of sense. So I think that's really unfortunate. I would like him, or at least generally what he's trying to do more, if he wasn't just like kind of like outright kind of bat crazy in some things, in terms of just like saying false things. But anyway, that was a little bit of a rant. I know other people in my life hate him more. I don't even hate him. I just am like, what is this man doing? But I think that SpaceX and some of the other ventures actually have merit, even though there are problems. I think government contracts that he's getting awarded for the Pentagon and then elsewhere, and then now he has all this influence. That's a whole other thing, right? And that's not good in general. Like, it's not just, oh, Trump. Like, this wouldn't be good for anyone to be able to have this much influence on the government, on the president, and then being able to get contracts reshaped in their favor, even if it was a Democratic president or anyone else. So SpaceX, I hope it's successful. I mean, I hope they're all successful. I mean, but it just, I don't like. I'm a little more muted about my criticism of him than some people in my family who, like, it's a big trigger. They're like, they hate this man with a passion, and I'm just like, it's more sad than anything. It's just sad. Because he could have been great, but I decided to be foolish. Oh yeah, and that whole thing. Sorry, Anish. Wow, you're promoting disinformation on the stream. Don't you mean the Roman salute or the what was the other thing someone had to say? My heart goes out to you, or Roman salute, or whatever. Come on, me. No, I'm just kidding. Obviously, we all know what that was. I mean, it's just a hot mess. Like, I don't know what's going on. Or maybe I do know, and I just try to give some benefit of a doubt. And now it's presently his ability to impact. I mean, I think no one can stop him. The only person who got kicked out, and that's another interesting thing. I know this is a tangential, but we're living in the Trump inauguration, Trump second presidency. So the only person who even got kicked out of Doge, and funny that name came really from Elon boosting Doge years ago. The only person that got kicked out was Vivek, right? Like, Vivek Ramaswamy was the only person who actually really got kicked out of that. So Musk has a million times more influence and always will. Even Vivek, while he was a bit of a superstar in that primary, I mean, he's a billionaire, but like, he doesn't have anywhere near the same influence. And he left, but he also kind of got pushed out. Apparently, Elon had a beef with him. Not sure why, but because they both are on the same side of the whole H-1B visa debate. But I think Vivek had a bit more ire drawn towards him because he kind of had the longer tweet about American culture is basically trash. We need to be more like these immigrants who come to this country and are smarter. That's basically what he said. And that did not go over well with some of the America First people. Elon also promoted it, but I don't know if he was as harsh. He had a problem, I think, with some people because Elon Musk is how he is, and he just is very almost Trump-like with the way he tweets. But I don't think he did as much of a broad bashing of American culture in the same way. To be honest, I was very busy and heads down at the time with some work trainings at the end of the year, so I was not paying as much attention to that whole fiasco, or that whole back and forth. But anyway, Elon Musk this was partly to your question, Gil, of who's going to let him get away. How are people going to let him get away? I'm like, no one can stop him. I saw a good post. I think it was actually the Yang Reddit, which I don't keep up with, but I happened to see something in there. There's some blog or website someone runs. And I remember they posted about how like Elon Musk is always going to be like more successful than Trump in a way where like, even if he does get the boot, he can just kind of like continue to be the richest man and do whatever he wants elsewhere. Trump obviously is president and he has his own success story with being a comeback kid, but like it is interesting. Elon's in a kind of a unique position where Trump can't really like, I mean, Elon has more money than him. Elon has, in some ways, has more influence. I mean, it depends on how you want to look at it, but he owns X now. Trump owns Truth Social, but it was just very interesting to see how like Trump kind of met his match. And while he hasn't gotten annoyed with Elon at this point, even if it happens, it won't really cause him to be banished the way other ex-Trump people have been banished, and they've really gotten the negative brunt, like the short end, not short end of the stick, but they've really gotten like kind of excommunicated. Like with him, he's going to be fine. So Elon's kind of a unique figure in a lot of ways, where even if he does crash out the way other Trump admin people crashed out, I mean, he's not an admin, but like we basically know he is. So the way the other cabinet people or other people in the last term crashed out or in the campaigns, he kind of can do whatever. And so I don't know who can really quote unquote stop him. That's actually kind of the crazy thing, Go. Like, I really don't know like what is going to be the way that this man stops doing what he's doing. And like, And someone even said recently, like, he might be better off now that Trump's in office, unlike where before he was just 24/7 Mar-a-Lago. People were getting annoyed with him. Not necessarily Trump, but other people were sort of thinking he overstayed his welcome. But now that you're not in, just this private little golf club in the post-election, now you have the presidency, and this man's not going to be in the White House. I mean, I'm sure he will be at times, but he's not living there. He's not going to and then Trump himself is going to be on the road traveling. So I think in some ways, Elon is going to have a bit of there's going to be he's not going to get on too many nerves outside of the online space, because now he's not going to be 24/7 around this guy like he's a lost puppy, or like Trump is Elon's lost puppy or whatever. Because now Trump has to actually do his job, and Elon is going to be doing his, I guess. And so in some ways that causes a little bit of a breathing room where he is not going to have the opportunity to piss as many people off, at least up close and personal. But anyway, that aside, I'll kick it back over to y'all, or people in the chat if you have more thoughts on all of this.
Nope, you're good. You're good. I am. Let's see. Let me pull this up.
Ooh. Whoa. I did not know about this. In the world? That's wild, because this man has children with 6 different women or something.
Yeah. No, so just to kind of switch things back a little bit, just doing some digging around, some snooping, as far as a lot of things that Trump is wanting to put into play that goes against what Martin Luther King was trying to promote. And I find it very interesting how a lot of things aren't going the way how they're supposed to be or how they were designed. I know I just posted in Discord one article where Trump signed an executive order ending birthright citizenship. And for anyone who knows anything about that, it's pretty much the 14th Amendment in the Constitution. And so when you think about that, it's okay, we already know that he, in his first term, he wanted to kind of dismantle the Constitution little by little, especially at little key items that was kind of very protective of a lot of people. And so now that he's back in office, we're actually seeing that portraying and actually seeing that happening. Now, whether it sticks or not, that's a totally different question. But how it's going to impact the American people and society as a whole, that's something to kind of look out toward, because now it's okay, you're messing with a living, breathing document that's guaranteeing rights to a lot of people, and you're basically saying these rights don't belong to you. So it's kind of very interesting how it's going. And then I just found another article that I'm gonna post in the Discord as well that kind of goes into a lot of other things that he's wanting to do. And if things go the way how we're almost expecting it, I know, Manny, you mentioned this too, the first 100 days is going to kind of give us a clear indication of where this term is going to go. If he's able to do a lot of these executive orders, memorandums, they actually get these pushed through, it's going to be very different from the dream that Martin Luther King envisioned for this country. Very different.
Hmm.
And so, just to kind of like kick things back off as far as questioning goes, um, I was at a Martin Luther King celebration down in Indiana, out of all places. And it was really cool. It was really neat to see. And the one thing that was brought up was that there's still progress to go, that there's still things that need to be done in order for that dream to be fulfilled. My question to not only you, Manny, Toby, but also to the chat as well, what are some of the things that we're currently seeing now that need some work on to help Martin Luther King's dream become a reality?
Mm.
It's a good question. I mean, a lot of it comes down to what else was he fighting for. Sure, the big thing that got a lot of popular support um, was with like, okay, civil rights, making sure that you're able to have really like on pay off these on paper and discrimination. But then you had things that he fought for economically, economic justice. You had sort of his anti-war stance. Um, I would say though, at least what you can do domestically is looking at things in, like poverty, right? The Poor People's Campaign and all these things. How do you address poverty, ending poverty? One thing that I saw someone say recently was the negative income tax. This was actually on Yang. I mean, I don't always watch his, I mean, I would say most of the time I don't, but sometimes I do. Like, it's like I'll catch something and I'm like, oh, this looks interesting. So I saw on his podcast, which he I think really rebranded Andrew Yang podcast, and there was something with the most recent guest about the negative income tax. That wasn't the main part of it. It was more about the idea of hard work and how success is almost like a trap. Like you're told that you'll just work hard and be successful, but that doesn't always correlate. And so at one point, this guest mentioned that he likes the negative income tax, which is like what Milton Friedman, I wanted to say, was trying to do, and under Richard Nixon. Well, Richard Nixon had a much different version with the family kind of income thing. But regardless, the negative income tax is a way that you almost can just bring everyone up to an above poverty level without giving everyone the money, but you're able to at least make it so that people are out of poverty almost instantly. And apparently that's only a few $100 million. I was shocked. I was like, is that really just that little money? Like maybe not even up to 100. It was either a few $100 million or just under 100 million a year. And so if you try to really invest, the child tax credit, there's a lot of things you could do, but it has to be really systemic. It can't just be tweaking around the edges. You have to systemically say poverty has to go and deal with a lot of the fallout, of course. Like what is it that poverty can create? Unsafe conditions, not the best learning. Like you have to kind of address everything. Fix poverty, try to like also affect the things that poverty have caused, because even if you can like try to get rid of someone's poverty in the moment, there's still a lot of effects that have sprawled, and how do you clean that up? And I mean, Keene went to like Chicago, he went to these places to try to look at conditions of the Black community and just what things were like. And so I would say a lot of that, which honestly the Black Panthers kind of were like, I would say effective at helping to address at one point before they were infiltrated and effectively killed by the FBI. I would say a lot of that work, really getting down to the poverty and the condition of what's going on, community by community. I feel like that has to be what's the most, and it's hard because then it's like, okay, you want to spend money, but then you have to deal with inflation, and inflation is a very tangled web. There was a lot going on because of COVID, but unfortunately, it coincided with a lot of government spending. And I'm kind of curious, Manny, your perspective. Because there's the political attacks about inflation, and you just have like what actually is happening. Like, you know, is it possible? Like, is it just too hard to spend on anti-poverty, bettering communities because there's the risk of inflation happening? Or like you want people to be comfortable with being able to like spend money, but are people just gonna be worried because we're now much more sensitive with sticker shock, right? So that's the thing that I think about, where inflation has not been a problem for decades, and so it was more theoretical. But now that we deal with it, it's like, well, is this thing going to cause more inflation? Or if it's not, is it going to be perceived as causing inflation, and that cancels out the anti-poverty programs? Anyway, I'll pass the mic from there, but that's something I think about every now and then.
Well, I have to tell you, I hate to disappoint you, but I don't think I'm really qualified to answer that question. Sadly, economics is not my forte. My forte is mostly just history. I can tell you what happened yesterday, but I wouldn't be able to tell you what's going on within the past several hours. I think for that, to answer that sort of question, you would need somebody that has a great knowledge of economics, as well as probably and that requires a great understanding of mathematics. So I wish that I could I wish that I could give you a more adequate answer that could be solution oriented, but unfortunately I don't really have anything. I apologize.
No, I respect that. I appreciate, the honesty with it. And I'm just spitballing too, like just kind of talking in general. And I think even to the broader question about what can help realize MLK's dream, of course, people in the chat, feel free to chime in. I know, Mish, you mentioned that capitalism has outlived its usefulness. That is an interesting quote. I've heard that quote. I must have known that was Keene, but if I heard that quote, I would not have known it was Keene, except for you saying it right there. So I guess in general, what do you guys think about? Ron, of course, you asked the question. I want to hear your answer. Manny, your perspective is very valuable. What do you think the realization of Keene's dream would look like now that we've gotten past, of course, the Civil Rights Act, the voting rights? Well, voting rights has been stripped a lot thanks to the Supreme Court. But, even if it was 100% fortified, what do you think we still need to do as a society to get closer to what Keene's vision and dream look like?
Well, and I'll even go just down to pretty much like the bare basic housing. The one thing that King fought for the longest time was housing. Toby, you mentioned this too, when he went to Chicago, especially like the areas that were heavily populated with Black Americans. He noticed that the housing quality wasn't the best in the whole wide world. Like, sure, you got a roof over your head, but the roof over your head, it's leaking. The heating system didn't work. It was infested with roaches, with rats. It wasn't, quote unquote, livable to the average American. And those standards are still being noticed, even still to this day. And so even in like my little small town of Three Rivers, like that's been a huge issue because we're still dealing with homelessness. And it's not just in my little small rural town, but it's everywhere. And the one thing that a lot of people are struggling with, I know, Rocky, you being out in California, you can pretty much testify to this too as well. Like, people feel a little bit more secure if they know they have a roof over their head that's theirs. Knowing that whenever I get done being outside and dealing with the world, I have a place I can call home, a place I can rest my head, a place where it's mine, and even then, just in my little small town, like that's always been a huge issue, is being able to find adequate housing. Mind you, my landlord, he just put my rent up, $15. I get it. everything is going up. So I get it, I understand. But me and him and his wife, we had conversations. He said, this is the first time I've ever raised rent in the time of me being a landlord. And this is over like 30 years now, we're talking. That this is the first time he actually had to raise rent. And it was like, I get it. Like, dude, I get it, I understand. And knowing that, again, when we're talking about like the economic side of things, the one thing that I did notice was, again, Trump wanting to do tariffs, which actually impacts the American people even more, which actually kind of helps drive up that inflation. And even though, yes, the Feds, they do try to lower the interest rate, but because of a lot of other factors that are coming into play, it does hinder a lot of people for getting that adequate housing. So it's like, okay, so what do we do? Knowing that if these tariffs that he wants to put into play actually do come into play, and if the cost of living is going to go up, what does that do to people for housing, just to live, to be able to provide for their families? Again, just on a very basic level. And so it's just one of those things where I think about a lot, like, housing is really key. If the American dream, or one avenue of the American dream, is home ownership to help provide generational wealth to the next 2-3 generations, the one thing that most people look at is housing. But if that part of that American dream is gone or out of reach, what next? What's that that next go-to to kind of help push it, and again, just talking to people here in my town, talking to people in other towns, other areas, that's a huge issue. Is home ownership, is housing, is that desire to have something to build up on, or to have a foundation on. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. To have that good, stable foundation to build up, to be able to do whatever else they need to do. And so, folks in the chat, you guys are more than welcome to throw out your questions as well, your thoughts, your comments. And again, it takes all of us. It takes all of us to be able to get to where we need to get to. Because if things continue to go the way how they are going, that dream may not necessarily become a reality, but it could very well become a nightmare to most folks, and that's scary. That's super scary. Super scary.
Actually, while I was not able to answer the economic question, I think I can attempt to answer the Martin Luther King question. The question, if I can recall, is what can we do, or rather, what can we do to make Martin Luther King's dream come true, or was it rather, what are the things that we still need to do?
Yes,
or maybe both.
Yeah,
a little bit of both. Yep.
Okay. Well, Ron mentioned that there have been accomplishments, and it's true. We have had the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which set the foundation for a great many things. The Voting Rights Act, which, as you know, we all know about that too, and the and we have had benefits since that time, that where there's intermarriages has been allowed since Loving versus the Supreme Court decision of 1967. We've also so we've had several gains, and we've also had a black president, and even while those things are good in and of themselves, we still have a long way to go. And you mentioned earlier, Ron, the Poor People's Campaign. It's economic equality is still a factor as it was in Dr. King's time. I think it went up to. I think unemployment is now up to 15%. I think, and that was from a poll that was taken back in 2011. I don't know how it is now, but I know that that's certainly a factor as to why there's it seems to be a lot of economic suffering. But what can we do to make Martin Luther King's dream come true? I think that one thing that we need to do is we need to become more solution oriented. And in addition to being, and if we want to become solution oriented, we need to start reading more. We need to educate ourselves more in regards to these subjects. One of the things that Martin Luther King wanted to emphasize was the quality of education. So if we are not able to have those things which rightly belong to us to be given to us, we have to take it upon ourselves to educate ourselves about these issues, so that we can better fully articulate our points of view, and in addition to that, know what our rights are, so that we can be better advocates of them. So it really begins with us. A second thing is that a second thing that we need to do is what we're doing now, is we're talking to each other. Each of us has a vision. And what is that vision? We want to make America a better place. We want to improve the quality of our life. And we want to, and we have to live together. And in order for us to live together, we talk to one another. And granted, my skin color is different than either of the gentlemen here, but that doesn't matter. That's not relevant. What really matters is that we're talking. We are coming together now. We're trying to create solutions, and we're trying to improve our own society, as well as our own lives, as we navigate through our life's journey. So educate ourselves, yes, and we have to come together. And even though we won't always agree, I think it's important that at least we begin these steps first. And one other thing that I also wanted to mention, when you mentioned Martin Luther King when he visited Chicago, they were only able to accomplish half the things that they were wanted to accomplish, and Martin Luther King considered that his march in Chicago to be a failure. And one of the things that Andrew Young said in his interview in King in the Wilderness, he said that sometimes you have to get, and I'm paraphrasing here, he said sometimes you have to get, you fight, you receive half a loaf, and then you have to fight to get the rest of the bread. So I think that that's important, that we understand that even though we have a long way to go, I personally believe that those solutions are tangible if we educate ourselves first, and then reach out to people who are willing to hear what you have to say and that are willing to work with you. And then that's how you build a movement. That's how you can't rely from the top up. You have to go from the ground up.
Yes.
So the way to do that is to, if we cannot rely upon our leaders, then we have to step up and take hold of these responsibilities and say, you know what? We can do something about it. We do have a voice. We do have the capacity to make this change that we are seeking. So I mean, that's what I believe. It's a start, but we have something. We have a foundation, and it begins through learning and also friendship.
Yes.
Oh, and apparently there's a question. Question for Manny. Why history? What inspired your love for history? Oh, well, that was. I don't want to make this stream, talking about myself the entire time. I don't want to come across as a very conceited person. So what I'm going to say is this. I'll tell you what I think history is supposed to be about. History is not about facts. It's not merely about fate. I'm sorry. It's not merely about facts or dates or about all these different events throughout history. History is about people. It's about ordinary people doing extraordinary things throughout their ordinary lives. I think that we can take inspiration from the past to help inform us of our present and help us to preserve our freedoms in our future. This is, for me, these books for me, it's not just they're not just read for pleasure. To me, these are things that you can fortify yourselves with, to bring with you and say, hey, wait a minute, maybe this policy may not have worked, but something in here can help us find the solution that we need, that could help us in as we forge our own futures ahead.
I like that. Ordinary people doing extraordinary things.
Yep. That works for me. That works for me.
That's what history is. So history is it doesn't need to just be about these bland and it doesn't have to be banalities. I mean, it's real. It's about real people making real changes, and if they could do that, we could do that. That's just the brief. That's the short answer to that question.
And Julia, first of all, what's up? Good to see you here. Happy New Year. Also, but you wanted to put the thing back on the screen real quick, Ron, for her comment.
Which one?
Her comment. I think, I think he was referring to Andrew Young. I'm trying to remember what the quote that you mentioned.
Oh, Andrew Young. Andrew, he's not the same as Andrew Yang. Ironically enough, I met both of those people. Andrew Young was an aide, an African American aide to Martin Luther King, and he was there like early in the movement. After the Montgomery bus boycott, he traveled down south and he met with Dr. King, and he became one of Dr. King's closest advisors. And so after King's death, he ended up becoming, I think he was an ambassador to the United Nations by President Jimmy Carter, and then he ended up becoming the mayor of Atlanta, Georgia, during the mid 1990s.
Honestly,
he lives in Atlanta, and he still talks about. He's still alive. I believe he's in his late 90s. He was born in, I think, 1912. No. He was born in 1932. So he's getting up there, but
he's 92. Oh snap! His birthday's in March as well.
Yeah, March 12th. Yes.
Oh goodness! Yeah, good memory. Yeah, really good. So because I honestly didn't know, because there's so many names I just did not know or remember from just high school or just learning Black history. So even when you mentioned Andrew Young before, like probably back in 2021, I was like, Andrew Young, because I knew you weren't mispronouncing Yang, so I was like, who is this person? And I'm like, wow, I can't believe I didn't know who this person was. Now, I wouldn't have known that he was the ambassador to like the UN and all that, because there's a lot of just cabinet officials who it's actually fascinating when you go back and you learn, oh, this person actually was this, like, apparently George H.W. Bush was a CIA director. And I was like, when did this happen? Like, I learned that, I don't remember when I learned that, probably somewhere in the 2016 era, but I just never knew these things. It's like, so it's really interesting to learn who was actually. I mean, vice president should be an easier one, but even then, there's a lot of people I didn't know were VPs before running for president. Like Nixon, apparently, right? He was someone's
Yes,
VP.
that's true. President Nixon was Dwight Eisenhower's vice president from 1953 until 1961.
Yeah,
I have no
could've
life.
told you
That's why I know that.
Yeah, that's just it's just so crazy. So it's very interesting. So I find all that's very interesting. Like, oh, this person in history, like someone could have been a mayor and then a governor, and then it's just very interesting to like I would like to almost comprehensively learn. Like, I'm trying to see how it makes sense, because you could just learn it linearly, like who are all the people in all these administrations, or you could try to follow a group of people and see their career progression. Particularly like in the 1900s, like I mean, it's interesting anytime, but especially relatively contemporary, and you're like, oh, this person went up the ranks in this way. Now we're in a different era where some of those ranks are being smashed and people are becoming president or other roles out of nowhere, like JD Vance. But it still is interesting to kind of see that traditional progression. I mean, Andrew Young is someone like John Lewis, right? They're both people who were involved more so through the morality, the civil rights. And so that's really interesting that they were able to use that as a platform to then get into their respective offices. And then, I mean, Lewis stayed. I mean, he was a really tried and true congressman.
Oh, absolutely.
He was there. That was his service and his calling. But like for Andrew Young, you see him like, oh, he ended up becoming an ambassador. I think that's interesting too. So.
There was something I was gonna add to that. I have just forgotten what it was. I've also met John Lewis too, and that indirectly also inspired me to learn about Dr. King. I actually met him on August 18th, 2013. That was the same year that I got to meet Andrew Young as well. But that was what inspired me to want to learn more about the history of the civil rights movement, to actually meet people who were there, who knew Dr. King very intimately, and just to be like, wow, you were there. It made history more real to me. So that's what prompted me and inspired me to want to learn more about these. To learn more about these events. And so what meeting them was inspired me to do was, if they could do it, we could do it.
That's real.
I mean, I met those people. Those people are real. They were flesh and blood. So, I mean, I can certainly testify to that. So like I said, if they can do it, given the backgrounds that they had, we can certainly turn the pages of history, and we can also write the next chapter in the books of law. Yeah. And that's what we should set out to do.
There we go. We got a question.
Mic drop there.
Opinions on the professional relationships of Marcus Garvey and other prominent civil rights figures. That is a really good question. I think both of them, not both, but all of them really had these, they wanted to achieve the same goal, which was to bring a sense of pride to their race. I think all of them had different goals in which the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X taught separation. I think that Marcus Garvey also preached segregation. Not segregation. Separation as well. But I'm not entirely sure, because I don't really have any. I don't have any books about Marcus Garvey. But I know that there is a documentary online called Marcus Garvey, Meet Me in the Whirlwind, which I saw many years ago on PBS. I know that that has very valuable information into insight of his life and all of the work that he sought to do. I think Marcus Garvey was the one who really set the stage for civil rights to become a prominent feature again. After this was particularly after the death of Frederick Douglass in 1895, who advocated for civil rights really for the rest of his life. Then Frederick Douglass dies, and all of a sudden Marcus Garvey comes along, and I find him to be a very fascinating figure that I wish I knew more about. And then you had people like people like Malcolm X, who, through his own personal growth, was able to, I think, he was one of the best people to fully articulate why we should that people should have pride in their heritage. It's not something just because you are of a different color, it doesn't mean that you should be ashamed of it. It means that you should be proud of who you are and where you come from. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think that we should use that in a way to express supremacy over other people, but rather we should be proud of of our blood, our heritage, our family, and what our names are and where we come from. That there is no shame in that. And I think that through his own personal growth, he also shared different philosophies that has helped people to grow in their own personal journeys. And I think that I think he deserves, very rightly, to be. I think he deserves a very prominent place in our history. And while he was a very complex man, I think that his words do have merit, and I think that he ought to be. His words should be deeply considered and also discussed.
Mm.
Speaking of Malcolm X, May 19th is going to be his of this year is going to be his 100th birthday, because he was born in 1925.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you guys ever wanna, if you guys ever wanna make a discussion on that, I would advise you. I don't think I'd be qualified to talk about it, but I would suggest that maybe you can invite an author who has written about Malcolm X to come and maybe to talk about Malcolm X, maybe on that anniversary, if you guys want to do that.
That might be a good idea. That they're gonna pass that one along to Elle, even though she's not here and whatnot. That might be something interesting we could pass along to her, and so we'll see. That'll be real good.
Yeah, I think
as a matter of fact, I wanted to add that there is an author who wrote this wonderful book that I have here about Malcolm X. Let me see if I can just grab it. There we go. This is a book called The Dead Are Arising. This won the Pulitzer Prize, I think, a few years ago. It was originally written by Les Payne, but the problem was in the middle of research for this book, he passed away. And so what happened was his daughter, Tamara, finished the book, and then it ended up being published, and it won the Pulitzer. So even though Les Payne is sadly no longer with us, Tamara is still living, and there is a way to reach out to her directly, or I know she has an Instagram page. So if you want to maybe reach out to her and ask her if she can talk about Malcolm X at some future point, maybe later this year, if not before May 19th, well, maybe around, maybe after. But I would strongly recommend, if you guys want to ask her questions about Malcolm X, and if you guys can get a copy of this book, this is a really good book about Malcolm X. So
looking at it now, okay, Tamara Payne, Les Payne. Okay. Very cool. Now this is good to add to my list. Two things that you mentioned, of course, Marcus Garvey. Yeah, I think I need to just find like a nice little short docu or something. I can read, of course, Wikipedia. I can read like an actual historical website, but definitely always nice to have like people's, voices, and just people to kind of get that like real life impression of what the person was like. But something else that I remembered, because talking about like Marcus Garvey, even just doing a quick little read, pretty controversial figure. I didn't know how quite controversial he was. But that would be interesting to go deeper into. Obviously, Malcolm X has his, but he's more of a known figure. Like, people really know Malcolm X and kind of how he had his, early days, and then he kind of softened up a bit after going on his on the Hajj, right? And he came back.
Yes,
And
the Mecca. Yeah.
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia, yes.
And so even when he came back, it was kind of like I denounced a bunch of this, and then there were the tensions. I remember just watching, the Denzel Washington movie. That was like required watching in my AP US history class. So I remember we watched it, and it was good. I'm really glad we did watch it because I knew nothing about Malcolm X. Like, really, I didn't know much about him before. So watching that was just like very, very interesting. Now, what I was going to mention was James Meredith. He was the guy I was trying to remember. Yes. Like, I remember reading about him some years ago, maybe like in the last 5 years even. And I just didn't, like, again, another figure who I just didn't really know, like, marched to go to school, but he was not part of the civil rights movement technically. And he got shot while marching to go get school desegregated, and people marched on his behalf. And then he ended up working for some Republicans, including Jesse Helms, a segregationist, and he was a Republican. And he's 92 or 91, so he's also alive, like the same age as Andrew Young, which is really interesting. But it's interesting to see those figures where it's like, yeah, like something like these people are alive still. Obviously, we just had Jimmy Carter pass.
Yes.
And he's Georgia. So it was like interesting to see a lot of these people who are alive or would have been alive if their life wasn't cut early. And these figures all have a different background, a different past that are not always well understood outside of just like the highlights. And so I just remember I just had to look up like who was the guy who I literally looked at Black activists marched to go to college. Which gave me the guy, but I was like, is this the same guy? So I also added and was shot, and then same thing came up, and it was still James Meredith. So I was like, okay, this is great. So there's some figures that there's so many to look into and look up and see the life and how it led to what it was. Because the civil rights movement is so like it's not just like a few year span of what you kind of saw with the main action of like people getting jailed and fire hose. I mean, this stuff was happening for decades in terms of the organizing. And it's actually fascinating to like see how long there was a dedicated effort because people knew that they needed to build something that was going to outlast them. And they were willing to put in years. And that's something we've talked about on the stream. We've talked about it before, like, especially when we first started, because it was in the wake of the Black Lives Matter, George Floyd protests, and it's like, what does it look like to have a multi-year? Like, what's the goal that's actually trying to happen, and how do you focus on that goal for a time, like a long time, or however long you need to? How do you even have that consensus on what needs to be changed? Because things are just, I don't know if it's because things are more decentralized. It's just what happened that you kind of have so many different. I mean, it's good to have different thoughts and obviously diversity in the Black community, but it seems like there was less of that like centralized or just like not just centralized, but less of like a cohesive strategy. It seems there's a lot less. There's people talking in the ether. There's a lot of people with a lot of views and a lot of online platforms and blogs and podcasts, even before podcasts. But what is it that you're actually cohesively organized around that you can work on for years to affect some goal, if people even have the attention span and the patience for it? Is there like because that's the thing, like people wanted to get to fight desegregation and they wanted to fight segregation and just the separate but equal and all of this, but what is the goal now? I mean, you have police brutality incidents that happen, but even that, I feel like people aren't solidified on what they want to do. Not everyone wants to defund the police. Not everyone wants to abolish the police. Not everyone wants to do whatever. And so it is kind of like a question of what is a modern day civil rights movement, particularly. I mean, there's different groups. So there are people who in other groups have, of course, taken on some of the civil rights. But even that happened kind of after, like a lot of things with Asian Americans. There was a lot of other racial groups that benefited from the civil rights movement. And that I feel like was kind of contemporary at the time. I don't know if like 50, 60 years later, you're looking like what groups are people are trying to like affect change using the civil rights group as like a template, and like what things need to. I mean, we just talked about what could be done to help MLK realize his dream. We gave our ideas about housing. That was really good, Ron. I think what you're talking about. I don't know. Sorry, it's a little rambling, but I'm kind of just thinking of like the modern day of like that level of discipline in the years. You have to have the goal that you're going towards. And I don't think people have a unified goal of what to solve in terms of civil rights or equal rights. In some ways, maybe it's because there's been so much progress and a lot of people are a bit more comfortable. But okay. And I'm ending my little spiel there, but also there's an interesting question. Could the contemporary civil rights movement be interpreted as an exact parallel of Yaqub's message to his people? Or is that referring to Jacob, like biblical? I'm not sure if I'm familiar with who you're referring to. Oh, Nation of Islam. Oh, snap. Okay, see, this is how you know I'm. There's some things that I need to learn. The Nation of Islam. Oh, it's a figure in the mythology of the Nation of Islam. Yeah, I'm not familiar, so I can't unfortunately answer. I'm not sure if you're as familiar with the Nation of Islam and some of the teachings, President Manny.
I'm gonna, on the safe side, I'm gonna say that I don't know enough about the Nation of Islam. Everything I know about the Nation of Islam was what I learned indirectly by learning about Malcolm X, and also through listening to people talk about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I know that there was a book called An Original Man by Claude Clegg. That I think that came out shortly after the Malcolm X movie came out, and there was a book about him. The title is called An Original Man, and so I don't have that book yet. But once I do, I hope to maybe read from it and glean from it and learn from that to learn more about the Nation of Islam. Another thing that I wanted to add on to Toby, as to what you were talking about earlier. You said you wanted to learn, see the parallels between this current movement that we have, and also with the civil rights movements of the past. I noticed that there is a slight difference between the two, and I noticed that in today's world, you can't really name any of the leaders that are a part of the current movement. Back then, you could look at the NAACP and be like, oh yeah, that's Roy Wilkins. Oh, that's Whitney Young. He's with the other organization, or A. Philip Randolph, or you knew who these guys were. Over in our era, we don't really. I don't think we have any current leaders that we can currently name. And say, oh yeah, that's the head of this organization. That's the head of that organization. So I think we know a little bit less now about who the leaders are of these movements. I do know that there is a book that came out recently called New Eyes for These Prize, which is written by Juan Williams. Juan Williams wrote a book many years ago that I have here. I'm not going to pull it out. It's called Eyes on the Prize, which is about the history of the civil rights movements from the early 1950s until the 1970s. And he provided a very detailed sketch of what that movement was about. Now he's written a new book about the current movements of the 21st century. And while I don't have that book yet, and I have yet to read it, I just wanted to share that information in case someone does want to find out about the civil rights movements for this century. That there is information out there, and there is a book about it, and that's available to those who are willing to seek for it.
Very interesting. So, Eyes on the Prize. I just seen that it's by Juan Williams. I had no
that's right.
idea. Because even when I look it up and I looked again and I went down to Juan Williams, I was like, oh, that's funny. It had, the liberal commentator, Fox News. And then I was like, wait, no, this is the same person. I was like, wait a second. I had no idea that he was like, wow, that gives me more respect to him, because I just really thought he was like some random guy who just happened to be the fifth, whatever, the fifth kind of round out to the conservative panel. So that's interesting. I should because I've heard of Eyes on the Prize before, and
Yeah.
That's definitely one I should move up on my list. And what you said about the known leaders are known, that's something I was actually thinking about. I didn't get to it didn't come out in my little rant thing because I remember hearing about how partly because I think some of it's the safety concern where it's like people get targeted. So there's some
Yes.
ways, a lot of ways people would rather it be this decentralized thing. Yeah, people can have maybe a point of contact for like a protest, but no one's trying to like be actively known as the leader. I mean, there were some people who lost their lives in Missouri where really that was kind of the birth in a way. I think with what was going on with, I mean, you had Trayvon Martin, but I think Michael Brown was really the birth of like the more kind of widespread Black Lives Matter movement first. And so I remember hearing around the time of the 2020 protests how there were some activists, multiple, maybe like 3. I mean, just who died. I don't know how he died. Like I don't know what the circumstance was, but it did seem like activists are dying. And what's going on now? Now there's people who are part of like the more executive Black Lives Matter, which is very controversial because there was a lot of fraud or like what the mansions in California that people bought. So that's a bit different. Those people, I'm not even sure what was going on in terms of their contribution. And I mean, sure, they kind of had like, I'm sure they were posting on social media. They were able to at least organizationally mobilize people. But I think when it comes to like a lot of the people who really are doing this type of work, the dirty work and trying to like make things happen, yeah, they are, I think, taking a much more decentralized approach. And it ends up being very localized where you have, okay, an incident happens somewhere. You're probably going to have some people protesting there. You might, if it's big enough, you might have people protesting across the country, but you don't know. Like when I was in Massachusetts, I actually didn't make my way to the protest. I meant to, but you know, life, COVID, not that I was personally afraid of catching COVID, but it was just everything happening and getting myself ready. It just was hard to, and I lived like, at that time I lived in North Billerica, so that's like a good 35 minutes from Boston. I was not just next door to show up to a protest. And maybe there were protests more locally, but friends that I knew who were socially kind of involved were going to Boston in particular. And so I just know that, like, yeah, does anyone know who those people were who were leading? Not necessarily. We might have had points of contact to show up to some protests, but those people were absolutely not involved with BLM. They were just people in our own sort of Black professional young group, whatever. So anyway, that's what you said. I think is spot on. That there's not quite the person to contact, and maybe that's by design. Maybe it's just what Rocky said was interesting too. How there's so many problems that people are trying to focus on. It feels like there's too many things to focus on. Maybe because you had the Black Panthers, then of course you had their sort of demise, and then afterwards, what happened? There was technically a new Black Panther Party that's not even really related to the original, and I think they're quite, from what I hear, quite radical with some of the things they say. But like, there's so many groups that decided to do so many different things. I couldn't really tell you what happened in the 80s and 90s in terms of actual organizations. I mean, in the 90s, you have the LA riots, you had what was going on there, but there wasn't really an org. It was just people being angry at police getting off or almost beating the life out of someone. So
Rodney King.
Yeah, exactly. With Rodney King, yeah. And so it's really hard to look at and say, well, even when time has passed, what groups have kind of come up? NAACP, I'm glad you mentioned them, Manny, because yes, they do exist. They've been active with lawsuits, but they've always been a bit different on the legal end versus like hardcore activists and organizing. And so they're active still, but they kind of do a bit of a different type of work. And then I think about other orgs, and yeah, it's you might have history foundations and institutions and people who, you know, there's plenty of people doing education and community involvement and engagement, but it is just fundamentally a different landscape and world. Maybe also just the success of the immediate aftermath led people to focus on other problems. You know, focusing on race is not always the sexiest thing for politicians. And like at some point, even after Reconstruction, race kind of lost focus for some years, some decades, where both parties, even the Republicans, were like, yeah, we're not making this a primary issue right now. So maybe that's kind of what happened again after the Civil Rights Movement. Democrats were in the wilderness for some while too. You had Nixon, Ford, briefly Carter, then Reagan and Bush Sr., and then
Clinton.
Clinton, who's very different. I mean, he had a good relationship with the black community, but it's not quite like he was an activist. You even have the crime bill and some other things, which politically was a good maneuver, but kind of had some fallout. And I mean, that's also it's imperfect when you deal with criminal justice, because there is like a reality that you have to deal with. But then, how do you tailor it? And so I don't know. It's kind of like, I was not alive. I was born in '95, so I mean, I didn't know what was going on in the 1990s because I was a child. Not even. But in the 2000s, even then, when I was getting to be of age, I'm not really focused on politics, so I didn't know much about Bush's time. Obama, I was older, but I still wasn't old enough to vote. In 2012, I was 17, so my first semester in college, and I couldn't even vote for Obama's re-election. And so my first election was the best election ever: Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump. What an election!
I remember that. Everybody does.
Oh yeah.
So, and I was 21 at that time. So, but anyway, I just say that because I kind of think about history and where we are and how these different movements ebb and flow, and maybe it is just a thing where it's fallen out of national favor, and so the only people who work on these things are really locally based in different communities. Maybe you have like the Poor People Campaign and some other groups which happen to like trend black, Poor People's Party or whatever. You have the people's, I forgot the name of the party, the Working Families Party, which is mostly based in New York and some parts of New England. So you have some different groups which are going to focus on certain local issues and run candidates. That's the other thing too, I think, is that people wanted to focus on political power and not just the sort of outside agitation, which is, I think, why you have people like John Lewis and others go into Congress. So maybe a lot of people wanted to spend more of their capital on trying to like get involved in politics, or if not directly running, dealing with PACs and different groups. That's an interesting thesis too. I don't know. I'm just spitballing there. And I'll let someone else.
No, it's fine. You're freely expressing yourself.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something. In other countries, other people are not able to do as you've done just now. Spitballing, you know, that's for me. Seeing you, to me, that you're being impassioned. You're giving an impassioned speech, and there's nothing wrong with that. In other places, like I said, you know, you don't really have the freedom to speak freely, but you do, and because you have this privilege, with this gift that you've been given, you can use that to influence others, to express themselves freely. And I mean, we've taken that, and the reason why we all have this, the reason why we're able to dialogue together is because of people like him.
Yep. Agreed.
I'm very thankful for having learned and discovered the both of you, as well as Leandra, because if I didn't know you guys existed, I wouldn't have known that there was such a what I call a beautiful outlet for free expression. You guys don't just talk about current issues. You guys, you talk about art, you talk about poetry, you talk about music, you talk about what's going on in our culture, you talk about local issues as well as national issues. So I think that this is I see these streams that you guys have done as a wonderful expression of freedom for you to speak about whatever it is that you want. I think that what you guys are doing is Thomas Jefferson's. I think you guys are fulfilling Thomas Jefferson's phrase of what the pursuit of happiness means. It isn't just the pursuit of happiness doesn't necessarily means the right to be happy. It means you have the freedom to be whatever you want to be, to study whatever you want to study, and to have the freedom to become whatever it is that you set your mind to.
Correct. Correct.
I like that.
Correct. And even then, because of the fact that we do have this platform, that to Toby's point, that we have like longevity versus a lot of the other platforms or a lot of the other groups that came out at the same time that we did. They don't necessarily have that longevity. Or not be able to kind of have like different points of views, topics to keep going and have discussions like this, where it's like you learning from one another. I look at it as iron sharpening iron, because you can't just be as sharp as you are without having somebody else to come and help trim off some of those edges and make it sharper than what it is. So again, just that longevity piece of being able to do these streams every other Tuesday is cool. It's great. I love it. I love it. And even then, just to have the dialogue and to get those different points of views, those different opinions, those different thought processes, just to kind of sit back like, you know what, that's something for me to chew on. Or, you know what, I can see that. I understand that. I get that. Or even then, like a lot of the book recommendations, like, you know what, I just got my Barnes and Noble's membership reactivated. So I'll be going and looking at some books to get. I got a whole bookshelf that I got books that I still need to read. Sheesh. Ha, 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 ha.
Now that's a response to until we drink the Kool-Aid. Oh, like everything's good until that happens.
Yeah. And even then, like I look at it like this, and I say this jokingly, in my own household, but I'll also know that it could be very well true. Like, we're free until this. No, I get it. Like, we're free until like further notice. We are free until further notice. And while we still have this freedom, utilize it and use it to the best of our ability. Because again, like we said before, there's a lot of stuff that's happening. There's a lot of stuff that's going on in the political realm, in the political spectrum, that if we are not careful and watchful to what's going on, we are setting ourselves up for failure. And not only just ourselves, but also the next 2-3 generations that come behind us. I love the fact that my daughter, she is so very much in tune in the political spectrum and what's going on at her early age, and how it's like, she asks questions like, hey, Dad, do you know about this? What about that? What are your thoughts on this? And we're able to have that dialogue to the point where she's like, some days I wish we can move out the country because it sucks. I'm like, I get it. But at the same time, like, baby girl, it's expensive. You gotta understand, it's expensive. So while we're still here, we're gonna make the most out of it. Julia, see ya. Good having you.
Good seeing you. Much love.
Good
Appreciate
seeing
you being here.
Yes.
Did you say move out of the country or move out to the country?
No, move out of the country.
Oh, okay.
As in relocate. Away. Okay. but again, like, it's a long running joke in our household where it's like we don't take it serious, but at the same time we also know like it's been out there just teeter-tottering in the brain spaces because of like, yeah. But even still, like I told them, like, I would rather stay here and try to tough it out because
Mhm.
who knows. But even still, like if we gotta go, okay, peace, sayonara. But anyways, we're not gonna make that into a reality.
Uh,
But
uh,
it is getting. Go ahead.
Actually, Ron, I wanted to ask you, how old is your daughter?
She is 13.
She is 13, and she's asking you these things. Okay.
She is 13.
So, are you trying to get her interested in these topics? Are you trying to deeper her interest?
Yes and no, to kind of
Okay.
put in that kind of spectrum. And here's what I mean by that. Like, I know, Toby, you mentioned like growing up in the 90s, you were born in like 95. I grew up in the 90s. So I
Oh, me too.
remember yep. So I remember the Clinton years also well, very much, good years. I know in the early 2000s, that's when I was able to kind of look at things politically in a way
Mhm.
where it's like, I don't necessarily like George Bush. I know what his family's all about, and I know that they had some good things, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm not feeling them. I would
Hmm.
rather go for Al Gore because Al Gore looks like a safe candidate.
Hmm.
Ended up losing, but it allowed me to dive into politics in a way where I was able to kind of like understand it at an early age, and especially when I was actually able to vote when Barack was running for presidency. I had turned 18. Like, yes, let me vote for him
Hmm.
because why not? Why not? Let's shake the status quo a little bit and let's do something different for a change. I remember doing some research on him, like what he wants to do and how he wants to go about doing things. I remember going to the second term and he was going against Mitt Romney. I'm like, this is going to be a tough situation because I want Barack to win, but at the same time, I know Mitt, he got some really good sounding things that, like, if he wins, I would kind of be okay with it. I really would. I'll be fine. And even then, that race was super close. And when, the world famous Hillary versus Trump, oh boy,
Hmm.
why? Why? We could have had anybody else. Anybody else. Why? So here we are now. Lack of better words, fast forward, here we are now. And so, and even then, like, it's very eye opening because even she was like, by the time she turned 17 and she'll still be not necessarily old enough to vote, but a lot of the things that she's witnessing now affects her when she becomes an adult.
Mhm.
And so that's why she's been keeping a very keen interest on a lot of things on the political spectrum,
Yeah.
whether it's on a national, state, or even local level. She's been kind of like just keeping her eyes on
The
the ground
prize.
in there. Yep, eyes on the prize. Yeah, yes, yes.
It's an interesting
Voting.
idea.
Sorry.
No, I was,
Yeah.
I was
I
literally
was
just,
reading it out loud. Voting should be
yeah,
mandatory. It doesn't
voting
fix
should
the
be.
issue of the. But many. That's very interesting that you mentioned it. From what I understand, in Puerto Rico, which is where my parents are from, they actually you're actually required to vote, and what they do is they'll give you the day off from work. So it's kind of like a holiday
Nice.
in Puerto Rico. So you have to go and you have to vote. But the thing is that um, like I said, you're also given the day off that day, so
Mm-hmm.
you can vote.
Yes. No, that's good. That's good. That should be like that. That should have been like that in the states, anyways.
Yeah.
But again, Taragi, to your point, like, no, yes, you're correct. You are absolutely correct.
Oh
It
yeah,
actually goes
absolutely.
And it again goes back to what Manny was saying to earlier about the need to read and to educate yourself on what's going on. I know you guys have already heard us talked about it before. Like, do your own research, even before the election season. Like, see who these candidates are. If you're able to ask them questions directly to get a better understanding, go for it. Do for it, because the more informed you are, the better off you're going to be. And so that way you don't be like the majority of the American population who this past election cycle wanted a do-over. Nah, you picked who you picked. We tried to tell you, you didn't want to listen, so now you're stuck. And you're going to have to deal with the consequences of your choices. And we're just going to sit back underneath the umbrella with our drink, with the umbrella in the drink, and be like, we told you so, but cheers to you anyhow. Have fun. We'll have fun, because a lot of y'all going to reap what you sow.
Actually, Ron, the reason why... Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was going to say, the reason why I asked about your daughter's age is because if she does have an interest, if you want to plant the seed of that interest, I would recommend... I understand you live in Michigan?
Yep.
So maybe you could take her to places that... I understand that... I know that the Gerald Ford Museum is also in Michigan. I don't know how near you are to Grand Rapids, but maybe you could take her there, and because I know that they have a wonderful presidential library over there. I haven't visited yet, but maybe you could begin there and show her maybe this little aspect of history. She may not be interested in Gerald Ford per se, but you could show her that, you know, people have... This is what this president has done. This is what he accomplished during his time. And maybe that might be able to plant a seed, and maybe through other historical places of interest that might be able to deepen her curiosity in these things.
Oh yeah, because that the Gerald R. Ford, that's in Grand Rapids. That's about a little under an hour from where we live.
Oh, okay, I see.
It's about an hour drive, but fun facts: when I lived in Grand Rapids for a number of years. And the street that I lived on, if you take it north, we actually lived on the other side of where Gerald R. Ford he grew up at.
Yeah.
And so his house is still in Grand Rapids to this day. It has the historical marker, and basically it's like, this is the boyhood home of Gerald R. Ford. This is where he grew up at. It's been preserved, very, very nice. Like, even the neighborhood itself is still relatively nice, but still it's like, it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, Gerald R. Ford, I know where he lived. I know where he used to live. It's right down the street, and we used to walk by his house all the time growing up, all the time.
Well, he lived until 2006. It could have been possible that you may have gone near him, but not have known it.
Truthfully. And it is weird, because, like, it's weird knowing that, and knowing that possibly could have ran into him a number of times. It never would have guessed it. Never would have guessed it. Let's see. You got a point. You got a point. But I know we've been talking and doing a lot of things. However, it's getting close to that time.
Oh, I feel like I just got here.
I know.
I can go on. I'm like, let's go. But if you guys are tired, I understand. The ironic thing is that I'm off for the next 2 days, so I got plenty of energy left.
I see. I think
tired, I understand.
Yeah, I think something like this, funny enough, happened the other time too, where it was like either I think you may have came on either a little later, or you just had the next day off, where you actually were like, I could really go, and I was like, oh man. I mean, you're on the East Coast too, so funny enough, like a lot of us are centralized around here, but like for those of us who do have to be up tomorrow, and unfortunately. I mean, whatever. Ron, I know you got me beat schedule wise, but I now have these 9:30 a.m. daily kind of stand-ups, and I mean they're like not long. They can be as low as 15 minutes, or even less. But unlike earlier, where I didn't really have to be mentally aware sometimes until later in the morning, now I'm like, oh crap, 9:30. Like it's not the worst, but it's just one of those like I get a little bit more conscious, and I get tired a little easier. Even though I have some energy, I can also feel my frontal getting a little bit more like a little bit more not laissez-faire, but just like, I'm here, but a little more passive, I guess. So my body, I think, is telling me it's also time to turn in.
Yes. Yes, but we will be back on, actually, the next time we'll stream will be February 4th. So that'll be February. So Valentine's Day, which will be in that month. So, and also we'll have our good friend, the lovely Elle. She'll be back with us. Yes. Yay! Miss her face. And again, we'll have a new topic. Have a new month where we're talking about something else. So yes, Manny, it's always good to have you on the show.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
I'm going to let Elle know that she missed a treat. So she's going to have to just watch the rerun. But and again, thank you for coming on. Thank you. It truly does mean a lot to us. And whether people really notice or not, like you're one of the very few OG Yang Yangers who we were actually able to have a collab with early on in the streaming life of this channel. So again, we thank you. We thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'm actually not one of the OG Yang Gangers. I actually came late into the Yang Gang in comparison with other people. I actually came in only 1 month before he dropped out.
But even still,
I thought it was in the. I thought it was like, because I remember you mentioned. So I mean, I'll be brief on this one because I do remember you told the story on your first stream here.
Yeah.
And I remember you mentioned how you were with Warren first. You were not a fan of how there was a clash, but then when you did some research, you were like, okay, I actually like a lot of the solutions that he's talking about. Yeah. So I assumed that you had gotten in. That was the October debate, I remember.
Yes, but
so I assumed
that the seed was planted, but it didn't go into fruition yet. It wasn't until I kept hearing a lot of his speeches, and then I said, and then I said, you know what? I've got to see this guy for myself. I've got to go and meet him. So I traveled to New Hampshire on January 10th, and then I met with him. And then that's how I became involved. I wish I had gotten more involved with the Yang Gang. Unfortunately, he dropped out 1 month later, and since then I haven't really been involved politically in really any organization whatsoever. And it's not because I'm being cynical or jaded. It's mostly because of the fact that I'm not sure where I am politically at the moment. I think I'm politically homeless right now. But even so, I'm not particularly worried about that. I'm sure there will be another candidate that will come along, and we'll see what happens.
There you go. But even still, man, like what I was saying too, like understanding, like, yeah, there are probably people who were there before you, but as far as those who grace this channel, yeah, you're an OG. I don't care.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate I'm grateful that you've considered me as an OG. You know.
Yes.
So I feel very honored, just to interact and talk with you guys, because I really admire this platform and what you guys stand for, and the fact that you guys dialogue about these many different topics and issues, I think is a great, for lack of a better word, blessing. I think to the internet. I think that there are not many young people that discuss these serious issues in a very serious manner. So
Correct.
so you guys, to me, are, and this includes L too. To me, you guys are a breath of fresh air.
Mm.
And I think that your voices are exactly what we need for this time, especially now. Even though we're facing, I think, a very dark period of history, and we're not quite sure how we're going to end up yet. I think that what we can do in the meantime is to try our best to be the light during these times, to try to set an example for people to follow. And in addition to that, we can be people that can inspire others to begin their own platforms to talk about their interests, and to be able to share with others what we are learning in this process.
Correct.
So I'm very grateful to you guys. Not just to be invited here on the stream, but really just for this entire journey that you've given us for the past 4 years.
Yeah. Wow. Yes.
Yeah, you guys started in 2021. I remember your first episode too.
Yep.
We're coming up on 5. Actually, I'm lagging. I don't know. Is my audio coming up? Okay, audio's good. 2020 April, May. It was the last week of May. When we officially started. Yeah, that's weird. I don't know what's going on with my side. But yeah, right before the George. It was actually coincidentally with George Floyd. We were actually discussing a different conversation. And I actually have been meaning to go back and watch the first early episodes. But I always get sidetracked or forget. But that would be a great thing in preparation for our 5-year. Just to kind of see some of where it really started and who was there. I mean, there was a lot more because we were kind of deeper. Yang dropped out, but there was a lot kind of restless energy online and COVID. And so there was quite a lot of interest at the time. And I'm really grateful for that. I'm grateful for the people who are here now. But it's all just been a journey. And it's kind of surreal that it's almost 5 years now.
Yes. Because I am going to do some snooping around. Because before we had our own channel, we were on. If you guys remember James Ellers.
Yes, I remember James Ellers. I remember him. I never interacted with him before, though. I remember the Yang Gang Book Club, and that was what got me interested. And then from them I discovered you guys, and then in January of it was in January 2022. That's when I went on my first stream ever with you guys, talking about the life of Dr. King.
Yes.
And I wish I could do. I do have a lot more time, so if you want, I'm free whenever you guys want to have me on, and I'm very happy to share what I've learned with other people. And I'm no expert on anything. I'm a student at everything. So and because if you know everything, then you don't grow. And if you don't grow, you're not going to be able to have the capacity to be able to learn anything, because you know everything. So the best thing, so I never say I'm an expert. I always say I'm a student at everything, because you're constantly learning, you're constantly growing, and you're constantly trying to become and evolve into your best self. I don't know if that makes sense, but what I'm trying to say is that me personally, we're all growing together, and I think it's important that we all share what we've learned with one another, and this is how we grow, not just in learning from the books that we read, but in our interactions with each other. I can learn just as much from Elle and from Ron and from Toby as I can from reading any of the books that I have behind me. I know that through their experience that they have a lot of knowledge that I have yet to tap into, and I look forward to further dialogues and discussions in which I can learn from them directly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, these are bars. These are everything. No, it's really uplifting for you to say that. I appreciate that.
No,
I
no,
like that.
really.
I like that
I
student.
meant every word of it. I mean, you guys to me are an inspiration. And in fact, sometimes when I watch your live streams, an idea comes on and be like, oh, you know, why don't I share that with the group and see what we can do with that?
Right.
No, it's good. It makes us think when you post something in the Discord too. It really is like we appreciate anyone who comes in, but you're very much a wealth of knowledge, and
I hope so. Thank you. I appreciate that.
It's nice to see kind of like the count, like the kind of even just like, oh, this is where we are in history. This is an interesting thing. We can correlate to what's happening now. Like I wouldn't have known about that. I mean, I think other people mentioned it, and I eventually would have heard about it. But that anniversary of the March on Washington, I mean, stuff like that, I do find very valuable. Just to have like this date was this. Like even when I was more active on social media, and I would see you post things like that. I've seen your Instagram recently for whatever reason. Like I remember you posting a few things, and I was like, oh, cool, look at that. In the new year. So I was like, it's always nice just to kind of sometimes see the context of where we are, even if it's not like related, like, oh, this thing 50 years ago, even if it's not like we're in a similar place. It's just, it's an interesting context. And when you actually do ask a question, of course, to us, and make us think about something, I think it's interesting. So right back at you in terms of learning and pondering things.
I really appreciate that. I know you guys are probably you guys want to wrap up, so I don't want to keep you guys too longer. I do have something I do want to share with you after we finish streaming. It's an idea that I think might be tangible for a future live stream idea, and I think it could be done. It has more to do with securing an author, but we can discuss that later. But I have to say, I don't know if you want me to wrap this up or if you guys want to wrap this up. I guess what I want to say is that to summarize not just what Martin Luther King Day was and what the Inauguration Day was. Yes, these are. It was a. I think years from now, this will be seen as a historical event, and this will be seen as a time of uncertainty. And even though we face these times right now, I want to say that we can learn to work together. We can, even though we may have different ideas of and goals and different solutions that how we think it would be best, but I think that it's important for us now to be able to talk to one another, to be able to make an effort to find ways to connect with each other, not just through online, but also through shared experiences. And I think that. And I think that Robert Kennedy said it best. He said, "Our lives on this planet are too short, and the work to be done is too great to accomplish." And I'm paraphrasing right now because I don't have the words in front of me. Our lives on this planet are too short, and the work to be done is too great for any one organization to be able to achieve. But perhaps we can remember, if only for a time, that those who live with us are our brothers, and that they seek, as do we, nothing but the chance to build up their lives, and that it's important that we look around each other as fellow human beings, and to become in our own hearts brothers, and I'm going to add sisters too, to become in our hearts brothers and sisters and countrymen once again.
Nice.
I know I butchered that quote, so I apologize in advance. I don't have the quote quite memorized yet, but the principle is that even though we have very short lifespans, well, I mean, some of us do, but despite this, we should take the time that we have now while we are alive to truly connect with the people around us, and to do our best to improve the quality of our own lives, and to become in our hearts what we should have been all along, a family.
Correct.
And that we lift each other up, and how important that is in order to build a better community for tomorrow.
Correct.
I should have been a speechwriter.
Hey, go for it. I think that would be a good rule. Blast from the past. Oh, nice, Ron, you're posting that.
Yes. Alrighty. So, with that being said, we are going to call this a night. Going to call this a stream. Thank you guys for coming out. Thank you for showing up. We had a first time chatter. Would you rather? But you were talking trash. So I'm just going to ignore you for right now. But again, for you guys who've been here, we're leaving. We're out of here. It's going on midnight, 12:02 to be exact. So we will catch you on February 4th with another stream, another topic. You never know what we're going to talk about, so just tune in. If you haven't, yes, thank you, Rocky.
Thank you.
So if you haven't liked the channel, whether you're on Twitch, go ahead and hit that like button. If you're on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that notification bell, hit subscribe, so that way you are always in tune when we go live. As far as socials go, we're going to kind of tweak that one out a little bit, because I think we may be doing a little switcheroo shortly, but we will keep you posted on that. With that being said, again, President Manny, thank you for showing up. Thank you for coming out and everything else.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yes, you're welcome. For everybody else in the chat, thank you guys. We love you guys. We will catch you guys on the 4th of February. That's the next stream. And with that, we are out of here.